Welcome back to Goofy Harry. Today's adventure. What if Wolverine smelled Harry Potter's blood and raised the boy like his own cub? Before we begin, do smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a single story. Now, let's dive in. Chapter 1. Scent of Blood. The cupboard under the stairs measured 4 feet by 3, and Harry knew every inch of it the way a prisoner knows his cell. He knew which floorboard ticked when the weight shifted, which spider lived in the corner by the water pipe, which angle of streetlight came through the vent slats at the bottom of the door once the world outside went to bed. He was 6 years old and he had learned the geography of small spaces before he had learned to spell his own name. Tonight the slats were dark. That meant late. Late was good. Late meant the house above him had gone quiet, the television off, Uncle Vernon's snore rattling down through the ceiling like a saw stuck in green wood. Quiet was the only safe weather in this house, and Harry had learned to wait for it the way other children waited for Christmas. He had a whole system, and the system was his life. He woke before the alarm upstairs, because being late to start breakfast was a reason. He cooked the bacon without letting it spit on Aunt Petunia's clean tiles, because a stain was a reason. He stayed out of Dudley's reach in the hallway and out of Vernon's reach at the table and out of everyone's reach in the small hours, because his own existence, taking up air in a house that resented the air he took, was the largest reason of all. He had learned to make himself thin. Not in the body, though he was thin in the body, all elbows and ribs, but in some harder-to-name way, learned to take up as little room in a room as a person could and still be standing in it. When he got it right, whole hours could pass with nobody looking at him, and those were the best hours, the hours where nothing happened, and in Harry's accounting nothing happening was the closest thing to happiness he had a word for. His arm hurt. He held it still against his chest and didn't look at it, because looking made things worse. Earlier that evening Dudley had wanted the last of the fish fingers, and Harry had been holding the plate, and the plate had become a reason, the way everything Harry held tended to become a reason. Vernon's hand had closed around his wrist and twisted, and there had been a sound Harry felt more than heard, somewhere in the bones below his elbow, and then the cupboard, and then the dark. He breathed through it, in for 4, out for 4. He didn't know where he'd learned that. It was simply a thing his body did when the rest of him needed to leave for a while. Outside, far down the orderly street of Privet Drive, a dog began to bark, then another. Then they stopped all at once, the way dogs do when something passes that they would rather not be noticed by. Harry didn't hear that part. He was already half asleep, the good kind of sleep that hurt less, when the smell of cigarette smoke and rain came in under the cupboard door. Logan had not meant to stop in Surrey. He'd been working his way south through England for 3 weeks on a thin, cold trail, a name in a file he shouldn't have had, a town that might have meant something to the man he used to be before they'd poured metal into his bones and burned the rest out of his skull. The trail had gone dead in a pub car park in Guildford 2 days back, and he'd been driving since, no destination, as he drove when there was nothing left to chase, but he hadn't admitted it yet. The truck was a rusted Land Rover he'd bought for cash off a farmer who'd asked no questions. The rain had been coming down since reading. He had the window cracked 2 inches because closed cabs made him itch, made the animal in him pace, and a cracked window let the world in. Wet tarmac, sheep, diesel, the green rot of hedgerows, the whole damp sleeping country breathing past at 50 miles an hour. That was how he caught it. It came in off a tidy little cul-de-sac of identical houses, the kind of street built to look like nothing ever happened on it, and it cut through the diesel and the rain and went straight down into the oldest part of him, the part that had been awake longer than he had memory for. Blood, not fresh spilled on pavement blood, not fight blood, blood under skin where it shouldn't be, bruised blood, and under that, threaded through it, the thing that made his hands go still on the wheel. Fear, old fear. The specific scent of a small creature that had learned to be afraid quietly, that had stopped expecting anyone to come, that had folded its fear down small and lived inside it because there was nowhere else to live. He knew that smell. He'd worn it himself, a long time ago in a place with a number for a name. Logan took his foot off the accelerator. The Land Rover slowed. He sat at the mouth of Privet Drive with the engine ticking and the wipers dragging back and forth, and he told himself, in the flat interior voice he used for talking himself out of things, that it was none of his business. He'd seen the world's appetite for hurting its smallest members up close and across 100 years, and he had learned the only thing that ever stuck: you couldn't carry it. You'd break your own back trying. You put your head down and you kept moving and you let the world eat what it was going to eat. He sat there a while. The rain kept falling. Somewhere behind one of those dark, respectable windows, the small, fearful smell kept breathing. "Damn it," Logan said to nobody, and killed the engine. Number 4 had a brass 4 screwed to the door, and a hanging basket by the porch with something dead in it. Logan came up the drive on the grass out of habit, not the gravel, and stood under the eave where the rain couldn't reach and let his senses do the work his eyes couldn't in the dark. 3 sleepers upstairs, a big man, the snore unmistakable, meat and beer coming off him even through the brick. A woman lighter, restless, a child, a fed child, a heavy child, milk and sugar and the particular sourness of a kid who never went without and was never satisfied anyway, and down low, under the stairs. The 4th one, the one the house was built to pretend wasn't there. Logan's jaw worked. He'd intended to look, to confirm he was wrong. People didn't keep children in cupboards. That was a thing from old countries and old centuries, not from a street with a hanging basket and a brass number on the door. He tried the door, locked, which meant nothing. He could have put a claw through the deadbolt and been inside in a half-second, but claws woke houses and he wanted to see the cupboard before he saw the man. So he went around the side, found the kitchen window on its little latch, and opened it the patient way, metal sliding on metal, no more sound than the rain already made. The kitchen smelled of bleach and last night's dinner. He moved through it without disturbing the air. The hallway, the stairs. And there, set into the wall beneath them, a little door with a slide bolt on the outside and an air vent at the bottom, and behind it the smell so strong now it filled his whole head. Blood, fear, and under those, faint and stubborn, a thing he had not expected and didn't have a name for. Something bright, something that hummed against his teeth like a down power line there and gone. He crouched, slid the bolt, opened the little door. The streetlight from the front room window reached just far enough to lay a gray stripe across a thin mattress, a tangle of blanket, and a kid curled into the back corner with his knees to his chest, and one arm held wrong against his body. Dark hair, too much of it, sticking up, glasses with tape on the bridge, set carefully beside the mattress where they wouldn't get crushed, and eyes, open now, awake, fixed on Logan out of the dark, that were the green of bottle glass held up to a light. The kid didn't scream. That was the first thing Logan noticed, and it landed somewhere he kept armored. A normal kid woken by a stranger opening his bed would scream. This one had gone perfectly still, gone quiet and watchful, doing the math the way prey does math. Where are the exits and how bad is it and what does this one want? Hey, Logan said. His voice came out rougher than he'd meant. He hadn't used it on anything gentle in a while. Hey kid, easy. The green eyes moved over him, down to the boots, up to the hands. Logan understood with a cold and total clarity that the kid was checking his hands, and he understood why, and something behind his sternum that he'd thought was scar tissue all the way through turned out to have a live nerve in it after all. That arm, Logan said. Somebody do that to you. The kid said nothing. His good hand had crept, without his seeming to know it, to cover the bad one. I'm not gonna touch you, Logan said. Just look in. You can tell me to clear off and I'll clear off. He stayed in his crouch. He kept his hands open and visible and on his own knees where the kid could see them, doing nothing. The rain ran off the eaves outside. The big man snored on up through the floor, a fat, untroubled sound. The kid's eyes flicked up toward the snore, then back to Logan. And the kid, 6 years old, one arm broken, living in a box, made a decision that Logan would think about for the rest of his unnaturally long life. He uncurled just slightly. He held the broken arm out into the gray light so Logan could see it, the wrong angle below the elbow, the swelling already up like dough. He held it out the way you'd show a thing to someone who might know how to fix it, and he said, in a small clear voice with no self-pity in it at all, "It clicks when I move it." Logan looked at the arm, then he looked at the ceiling in the direction of the snore, and the animal that lived in him came all the way up to the surface and looked too. "Yeah," Logan said softly. "I bet it does. Stay here a second, kid. Don't move that arm." He rose out of the crouch. "I gotta go have a word with the man of the house." He took the stairs without a single board complaining, which was its own kind of skill, learned in worse houses than this. The master bedroom door wasn't latched. He pushed it open with one finger. Vernon Dursley slept on his back with his mouth open, a mountain of a man gone to fat, the duvet rising and falling on his belly. His wife was a thin shape turned away on the far side, a curler in her hair, sleeping the shallow sleep of someone who heard everything and acknowledged none of it. Logan stood at the foot of the bed a moment and let himself feel all the way through exactly how easy it would be. He had been built to make it easy. 3 pounds of pressure, a sound like a cork, and the snoring would stop and the street would stay tidy and respectable and nobody the wiser. He didn't do that. He'd spent 100 years learning the difference between what he could do and what he should, and most of the lessons had cost more than he could afford, and he wasn't going to spend one of them on this. But he wasn't going to leave quiet either. He put a hand over Vernon's mouth. The man came awake the way fat sleepers do, a full-body lurch, the eyes snapping open and rolling, the arms coming up. Logan leaned a forearm across his chest, not all his weight, just enough, and the bedframe groaned, and Vernon Dursley discovered that he could not move at all, that the thing pinning him to his own bed had the heft of a fallen tree and a face 6 inches from his with a 3-day beard and eyes like a winter that didn't intend to break. "Don't yell," Logan said, conversational. "You yell, you wake your wife, your kid, the neighbors, and then this gets loud in public, and you don't want that. You're a man who likes things quiet, so we'll keep it quiet, nod if you understand me." Vernon's eyes went to the side, to his wife, calculating. Logan tightened the forearm a fraction. Something in Vernon's chest decided to cooperate before Vernon did. He nodded. "Good." Logan took his hand off the mouth but left the forearm. "There's a child under your stairs with a broken arm. You want to tell me how that happened?" That boy, he's not." Vernon's voice came out in a wet whisper, indignation and terror tangled. "He's a liar, whatever he's told you. He's a wicked, ungrateful. We took him in out of the goodness of, who are you? You can't come into a man's house." "I'm in it," Logan said, so that part's settled. He let the silence sit. The rain, the wife's breathing across the bed too, even now, awake and pretending. His arm clicks when he moves it. "You know how I know that?" He told me, held it out and told me, like it was a normal thing, like it was a thing he expected somebody might want to fix. Logan leaned in another inch. "A kid only says it like that when it's not the first time." Vernon had gone the color of wet ash. It was an accident. He provokes. You don't know what he is. Things happen around him. Unnatural things. We did our best. We are decent people." The word unnatural landed in Logan's head and stuck there, next to the bright humming thing he'd smelled in the cupboard. He said it where he kept things to come back to. For now, there was the man under his arm and the choice in front of him. "Here's what's gonna happen," Logan said. "I'm talking the kid. Tonight, you're gonna lie here and you're not gonna call anyone. And in the morning when you find the cupboard empty, you're gonna feel, I'd guess, mostly relief, and you're gonna build whatever story you need to build to live with yourselves, and you're real good at that, I can tell. And you're never gonna look for him. You understand me? You can't just." Logan let one claw come out. It came out of the back of his hand between the knuckles with a sound like a struck blade, 11 inches of metal that did not exist in any honest world, and it stopped a precise half-inch from the soft underside of Vernon Dursley's chin, close enough that the man could feel the cold coming off it. Logan did not look at the claw. He looked at Vernon's eyes, and he kept his voice exactly as flat and exactly as quiet as it had been. "I've met a lot of men like you," Logan said. "Men who only ever hit things smaller than them. You're not special. You're not even interesting. But I want you to understand something, because I think you're a man who responds to understanding things clearly." He let the claw turn, catching the streetlight. "If I ever smell that boy again, his blood, his fear, if I ever cross a street in any city in the world and catch one whiff of him scared, I'll find this house. I won't knock, not if you understand me." Vernon Dursley nodded. He nodded several times. There was a smell off him now that hadn't been there before, sharp and ammoniac, and Logan let the claw slide back in and stood up off the bed and didn't comment on it. "Stay down till morning," Logan said to both of them, because the wife had given up pretending and lay rigid with her eyes squeezed shut. "Both of you, you'll find you sleep better without him in the house. That's the kind of people you are." He left them like that and went back down the stairs. The kid hadn't moved. He'd done exactly what Logan told him, stayed put with the broken arm held still, and that obedience said as much as anything else about the life he'd been living. Logan crouched down at the cupboard mouth again. "Okay," Logan said, "here's the deal, and I'm only gonna say it once, so listen. I'm leaving this house in about 2 minutes. You can come with me or you can stay. You come with me, I'll get that arm set, I'll get you fed, and I'll figure out the rest after. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I know what I'm doing, because I don't. I'm not a good guy, but I'm not them." He tipped his head up at the ceiling. "That's the whole offer. You got questions, ask 'em fast." The green eyes studied him in the dark. The kid was thinking. Logan could see the gears turning, could smell the new note threading through the fear, something he recognized because he'd felt it himself in a snowfield a lifetime ago, the dangerous, fragile thing called possibility. "Where do you live?" the kid asked. "Nowhere, truck mostly, wherever I stop." The kid considered this. It seemed to reassure him rather than the opposite. "What's your name?" "Logan." "Logan what?" "Just Logan. What's yours?" "Harry." A pause. "They don't call me that mostly, they call me boy, or other things." "Harry," Logan said like he was checking the weight of it. "All right, Harry, 2 minutes." Harry reached for his glasses, careful, one-handed, and put them on, and the world came into focus, and he looked up at the big man crouched in the cupboard doorway, the scarred hands, the wet hair, the eyes that hadn't softened even while the voice had, and Harry made the second decision of the night. "I'm coming," he said. "Then get your shoes." "I don't have shoes, not ones that fit." Logan looked at him a second. Then he shrugged out of his jacket, the battered canvas thing that smelled of smoke and rain and the road, and he wrapped it around the kid one-handed, mindful of the arm, and the jacket swallowed Harry whole down to the knees, and Logan lifted him light, too light. A 6-year-old should not weigh what a sack of dry leaves weighs, and carried him out the front door into the rain, past the dead thing in the hanging basket, down the grass and not the gravel, to the truck. He set the kid in the passenger seat. He found an old wool blanket behind the bench and tucked it around the small legs. Then he went around and got in and started the engine, and the heater coughed and began to push warm air, and Logan put the Land Rover in gear and pulled away from number 4 Privet Drive at a careful, unremarkable speed. A man and a child driving off into the rain, nothing to see, nothing happened here, a tidy street where nothing ever did. In the passenger seat, Harry watched the identical houses slide past and not come back. He didn't cry. He'd learned a long time ago that crying spent energy you might need later. But somewhere around the 3rd roundabout, when it became clear that the truck was not turning around, that this was real, that the cupboard was actually behind him and getting farther away every second, his good hand crept across the bench seat and took hold of the loose fabric at the bottom of Logan's shirt, just a fistful, just to have something to hold, and he didn't say anything about it, and neither did Logan. Logan drove north. The kid held on. The rain washed the windscreen and the wipers cleared it, and the dark road unrolled. And after a while the small fist relaxed and the breathing in the passenger seat went deep and even, the sleep of a creature that has, against all its training, decided to trust that it is safe. Logan kept both hands on the wheel and his eyes on the road, and did not let himself think too hard about what he had just done to his own life. The clinic was a 24-hour place on the outskirts of a market town, a tired building with a flickering sign, the kind that didn't ask too many questions if you paid cash and looked like you might be trouble if pushed. Logan had used places like it before for himself in the years before he understood that he didn't need them. He carried Harry in wrapped in the jacket, and the night nurse took one look at the arm and one look at Logan's face and decided sensibly to focus on the arm. "How did this happen?" she asked, gentle, the way they're trained to ask, watching Logan and not the child. "Fell," Logan said. "He fell. Down some stairs," Logan said. "I just found him. He's not mine." It was the wrong thing to say and the right thing both. The nurse's eyes sharpened. But Harry on the table with the green eyes and the taped glasses looked up at her and said in that small, clear, factual voice, "He's getting me out. It's better now." And there was so little drama in it, so much plain truth, that the nurse looked from the kid to the scarred stranger and back, and something in her professional caution lay down. "It's a clean break," she said. "He's lucky. I'll set it and cast it. He'll need it on 6 weeks. She paused. "There's old bruising, different ages. This isn't the first time something's happened to this child." "I know," Logan said. "It's the last." She set the arm. Harry didn't make a sound the whole time, which the nurse remarked on later to no one in particular. How the child had just watched her work with those still green eyes and gripped the table edge with his good hand and never once cried out, and how that was somehow worse than if he had. They cast it in green because Harry asked his preference and, visibly startled that anyone would ask, said "Green, please," after a moment, like the word had to be retrieved from somewhere it had been put away. Logan paid in cash. They left before the shift changed. In the truck in the gray hour before dawn, with the cast drying on the kid's arm and the heater going, Logan pulled into a transport cafe and bought a tray of food and watched a 6-year-old eat the way the half-starved eat, fast at first, hunched, an arm curled around the plate against thieves who weren't there, and then slowing as the body began to believe there would be more. "Nobody's gonna take it," Logan said quietly around his own coffee. "You can slow down. There's more if you want it." Harry looked at him over a forkful of beans. "There's never more," he said, not arguing, just reporting the law of his world. "There is now," Logan said. The kid considered this as he considered everything, like a fact that had to be tested before it could be trusted, and then he slowed down a little and ate the rest like a person and not like an animal, and Logan ordered him a second plate just to prove the point, and watched him eat half of that too, and felt the live nerve behind his sternum throb again, and didn't know what to call the feeling and didn't try. The kid's clothes were a problem Logan hadn't reckoned on until the sun came up and he got a proper look at them. They were Dudleys, all of them, the cast-offs of a child twice Harry's size, washed gray and hung wrong, a jumper with a hole in the elbow that the broken arm now stuck through, trousers cinched at the waist with a twist of garden wire because there was no belt small enough. Shoes that weren't shoes, plimsolls really, the canvas split at both toes, 2 sizes too big and stuffed with newspaper to keep them on. Logan looked at the wire belt for a long moment in the cafe car park and then drove them into the nearest market town and parked outside a shop that sold sensible things for children. "Come on," he said. "We're getting you some gear." Harry didn't move. He sat in the passenger seat with the jacket still around him and looked at the shop window, the mannequins, the bright stacked jumpers, the rack of small Wellingtons in primary colors, and Logan watched a kind of refusal close over the kid's face, an old refusal, a learned one. "It's all right," Logan said. "I got money." "It's not that." Harry's voice was careful. "Dudley gets new things. I get Dudley's old things when they don't fit him. That's how it works." He said it without bitterness, as he said everything, just laying the rule on the table. "New things aren't for me." Logan sat with that. He'd watched men come apart under interrogation without flinching, and the flat little sentence from the passenger's seat got under his guard cleaner than any of it. "Yeah, well," he said, "different rules now. New things are for you. Get out of the truck." Inside, a shop assistant with a tape measure and a wary expression watched the scarred man and the small boy in the enormous jacket come down the aisle and decided the man was probably the kind of trouble you served quickly and politely. Logan ignored her. He stood Harry in front of the shelves and said, "Pick." Harry looked up at him. "Pick what?" "Whatever you want. Jumper, trousers, coat, boots. We need it all, so pick." It was, Logan would understand later, possibly the first time in the kid's life that anyone had handed him a choice and meant it. Harry stood very still in front of the bright shelves with his green cast and his taped glasses, and his eyes went over the colors, and his good hand came up halfway toward a dark green jumper and then stopped, hovering, the way a hand hovers over a hot stove, waiting for the catch, the trick, the moment somebody said, "Not that one. Who do you think you are?" The catch didn't come. Logan just stood there with his arms folded, patient as a stone. Harry touched the green jumper. When nothing happened, he took it off the shelf and held it against himself, and then he looked up at Logan again, checking, and Logan gave him one short nod, and something in the kid's shoulders came down half an inch. They were in the shop the better part of an hour. Harry picked carefully, agonizing over each thing, putting two of everything back for everyone he kept, unable to shake the certainty that he was getting away with something and would be made to pay for it. Logan let him take his time. When the kid kept skipping past the boots, Logan picked up a pair of small brown leather ones, proper ones, and put them in Harry's hands and said, "These. A man needs good boots more than anything else he owns. Everything starts with your feet. Try 'em." Harry tried them. They fit. He stood in them and looked down at them and didn't say anything for so long that the shop assistant drifted closer, concerned, and Logan waved her off. "They're new," Harry said, finally, quiet to the boots. "Yeah, nobody's worn them. Just you," Logan said. Harry kept looking at the boots. Then he scrubbed at his face once, quick and rough, with the back of his good hand, and put it down to the glasses fogging. And Logan looked at the ceiling and gave him the moment in private. And the shop assistant rang it all up and Logan paid in cash, and they walked out into the gray morning with the kid wearing his new green jumper and his new brown boots and the old plimsolls left behind in the bin by the till, where they belonged. In the truck, Harry sat with his new coat folded in his lap and his hand resting flat on top of it, like he was keeping it from flying away. He didn't say thank you. He didn't have the machinery for it yet. The words had rusted shut from disuse. About a mile out of town, he said to the windscreen, "I'll be good, so you keep me." And it was so plainly a bargain, an offer of terms, a small creature laying out the only currency it thought it had, that Logan had to wait a second before he trusted his own voice. "It don't work like that," Logan said. "You don't gotta earn it. I'm not gonna feed you for as long as you're useful and dump you when you're not. That's how they did it. That's not how I do it." He pulled the truck onto the road north. "You're a pain in my neck, kid. You're gonna eat my food and slow me down and cost me money I don't have. And I'm keeping you anyway. That's the deal. You don't gotta be good. You just gotta be here." Harry didn't answer. But somewhere in the next mile his hand left the coat and crept across the bench seat and took its fistful of Logan's shirt again, and this time he didn't let go for a long while, and Logan drove one-handed and let him hold on. They drove north for 2 more days, stopping when the kid needed to stop, Logan saying little and Harry saying less, the two of them learning the shape of each other's quiet. It turned out they were both good at quiet. It turned out quiet, between the right two people, isn't empty at all. On the first afternoon, Logan pulled into a lay-by overlooking a long green valley to let the engine cool, and they sat on the warm bonnet eating crisps out of the bag, and a family stopped a little way off, Mum, Dad, 2 kids, a dog, the whole arrangement, to look at the view. Harry watched them as he watched everything sideways, learning the threat in it. Logan watched Harry watch them. "What are you seein'?" Logan asked. Harry thought about whether it was a trap. He'd decided somewhere in the last 2 days that most of what Logan said wasn't, and he was still testing the decision. "The dad's the dangerous one," Harry said. "He's bigger, and the mum does what he wants." Logan chewed. "Again, watch the hands, not the size. The hands tell you who runs a thing." He nodded at the family. "Dad's hands are busy with the dog, the kids, the map. Mum's hands are still. She's watching the road, watching the car, watching her people. She decides when they leave. He just thinks he does. He crumpled the empty bag. Big don't mean dangerous, kid. I've met big and harmless, and I've met small and lethal. Pay attention to who's calm. Calm is the tell. The calm one's already decided how it ends. Harry looked at the mum again with new eyes and saw that Logan was right and tucked the lesson away somewhere it would stay. Are you the calm one? Harry asked, or the big one? Logan almost smiled. It didn't quite reach his face, but it got close. I'm the one you don't want to find out about, he said. Eat your crisps. They talked more on the road than either of them would have predicted, in the broken, sideways way of two people who weren't used to it. Harry asked questions the way a person tests ice, 1 foot at a time. How old are you? Older than I look. Where are you from? Don't know. That's the honest answer. Do you have a family? Logan was quiet a while on that one, the hedgerows going by, before he said, not anymore, and Harry, who understood the shape of that better than most 6-year-olds could, didn't push. He just slid a little closer on the bench seat, and Logan didn't move away, and the valley unrolled north and green ahead of them. That night before the moor and the stars, Harry had the dream he always had, the one where the cupboard door wouldn't open and the air ran out, and he came awake hard in the dark of the truck with his good hand fisted and his pulse going fast and shallow. And for one bad second he didn't know where he was, and the dome light overhead flickered on by itself, and the radio, switched off, gave a short rising whine of static, and the air in the cab went thick and bright and humming. That same down power line Buzz Logan had smelled in the cupboard, rolling off the kid in a wave. Logan came awake at the first flicker, already still, watching. It passed in a few seconds. Harry's breathing slowed. He placed himself, truck, blanket, Logan, safe, and the light steadied, and the radio died back to nothing and the humming bled out of the air and was gone. The kid hadn't even noticed he'd done it. He thought the light had just flickered. Logan said nothing. He lay back against the door with his eyes half shut and his pulse easy and said it beside the other thing, the word the fat man had used, building quietly toward a picture he didn't like the shape of. Whatever lived in the kid woke up when the kid was scared. That was useful to know. That was also, he thought, going to get them both hunted before it was over. You okay? Logan said after a while, like he'd only just half woken. Bad dream, Harry said. Nothing. Yeah, Logan said, I get those. He didn't get those, not anymore. There was nothing left in his head that bad dreams could find, but the kid didn't need to know that tonight. Go back to sleep, I'm right here. And the kid, astonishingly, did. On the second night, Logan pulled the truck off a forestry track in the Yorkshire Dales and parked it where the trees came down to a beck, and they slept in it. The kid stretched across the bench under the wool blanket, and Logan sitting up against the door with his eyes half closed. As he slept, never all the way under, an ear always open. The more wind came down off the tops and rocked the truck, and the beck ran loud over its stones, and Harry, who had never in his life been somewhere with no walls and no street and no ceiling close above his face, lay awake a long time looking out the window at more stars than he'd known existed. Logan, he said into the dark. Yeah, why'd you take me? Logan was quiet a while. It wasn't a question he had an honest answer to, or rather he had one and didn't much like it. You ever smell something, he said finally, and it puts you right back somewhere, bread or rain on a hot road, and you're a kid again before you decide to be. Yeah. It was like that. Logan shifted against the door. I smelled you a mile off, smelled what they were doing to you, and it put me back somewhere I'd been. A long time ago somebody should have come for me and nobody did, and I turned out. He gestured at himself in the dark, the whole scarred, immovable mass of himself, like this. And I figured this once somebody could come, that's all, don't make it a thing. Harry was quiet. Then what were you when somebody should have come? Younger than I am now, Logan said. Older than you'll ever have to be. Go to sleep, kid. But Harry didn't, not right away. He lay there with the wind shoving at the truck, and after a while he said, in the careful voice of someone testing the last and thinnest sheet of ice, what happens when you don't want me around anymore? Logan turned his head. In the dark he could see the green eyes open, fixed on the roof of the cab, braced for the answer the way the kid braced for everything. Listen to me, Logan said, and there was an edge in it now, not at the kid, at the whole arrangement of the world that had put that question in a 6-year-old's mouth. I've buried a lot of things, people, years, whole pieces of who I was gone, and I don't even get to remember 'em. You know what that's taught me. You don't throw away the things you get to keep. You hold on to 'em with both hands, and you make anybody who wants 'em come through you. He let that sit. I'm not gonna stop wanting you around, but even if I did, I still wouldn't put you out. That's not how it works with me. You're stuck, kid. Sorry, should have read the fine print. It was as close to a promise as Logan made to anyone, and he meant every brick of it, and the kid heard that he meant it. Harry didn't say anything. But after a minute his hand came off the blanket and reached up and found Logan's sleeve where it hung over the seat back, and closed around 2 fingers worth of fabric and held it, and this time it wasn't fear that did it. Night, Logan, he said. Night, Harry. Harry slept. Logan did not really. He sat against the door with the moor wind shoving at the truck and the immense wheeling stars overhead, and he watched the small chest rise and fall under the blanket, the broken arm in its green cast tucked safe against the body, and he thought about the word the fat man had used. Unnatural. He thought about the bright humming thing he'd smelled under the blood, the thing that buzzed against his teeth. He'd lived a long time among the world's strange ones. He'd seen kids who could move metal with a look, kids who walked through walls, a man whose touch could pull the life out of you. He knew the smell of a mutant as he knew the smell of rain. This wasn't that. This was something else, something he didn't have a file for. And whatever it was, it had been strong enough to make grown adults so afraid of a 6-year-old that they'd locked him in a box, and that kind of fear, in Logan's long experience, never stayed a private family matter. Things that strong got noticed, got hunted. He'd been hunted himself most of his life, and he knew how it went. Somebody somewhere was going to come looking for what this kid was. Logan looked at the sleeping child, at the green cast, at the taped glasses folded on the dash, and he made the largest decision of the 3 he'd made that night, the one he'd spend the next years of his life keeping. When they came, whoever they were, they would have to come through him. The wind blew, the beck ran. The stars turned overhead, indifferent and bright, and a man who had spent 100 years learning to need no one fell asleep at last, near dawn, with one hand resting open on the seat between himself and the cub, in case the kid woke in the dark and needed something to hold. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. Cub the Croft sat alone at the head of a glen in the western highlands, a low stone box with a slate roof and a chimney that drew badly when the wind came from the wrong quarter, which was most of the time. It had no neighbors within 4 miles and no road worth the name, just a track that turned to a river when it rained. Logan had taken it for cash from an old man in the village, who was glad of the money and gladder still not to have to ask why a hard-looking foreigner wanted the loneliest house in the parish for himself and a small boy with a green cast on his arm. It was the first place Harry had ever lived where he had a door he could open from the inside. That detail mattered more than the rest of it put together. The first night, Logan caught him standing in the doorway of the little back room that was now his, opening the door and closing it, opening it and closing it, testing the handle, learning that it turned for him too. Logan didn't say anything. He went and split kindling in the yard until the kid was done. When he came back in, Harry was asleep on top of the blankets, not under them, fully dressed, his new boots still on, the way a person sleeps when some part of them hasn't yet agreed to stay. Logan pulled the boots off without waking him and put a second blanket over him and went to sit by the fire with a bottle and didn't drink much of it. The food took longer to fix than the door. For the first month, Harry stole. Not from anyone, there was no one to steal from, but he took food from the kitchen and hid it, bread heels under his mattress, a tin of beans behind a loose stone in the wall, an apple gone brown in the pocket of his coat. Logan found the caches as he found everything by smell, and he never said a word about them. He just kept the kitchen full. He bought more than 2 people could eat and let it sit there in plain view, and every week there was more, and the message was the same one he'd given in the transport cafe, and he was willing to repeat it as many times as it took. There is more, nobody is going to take it, you can stop. It took until the snow came. One morning in December, Logan found the apple, fresh this time, tucked into the gap behind the stone, and he left it where it was, and the next day it was gone, eaten, and there was no new one to replace it. The kid had taken food because he was hungry, not because he was afraid. Logan stood in the cold kitchen with his coffee and understood that something in the kid had finally believed him, and he felt the live nerve under his sternum do its slow turn, and he went outside and chopped wood he didn't need so he'd have something to do with his hands. The cast came off in the village in the new year. The doctor said the arm had healed clean and strong. Harry flexed it, made a fist, and looked at it the way you look at a tool you'd half forgotten you owned. Good, Logan said in the truck on the way back up the glen, because now we start. Start what, Mackin? Sure nobody ever does that to you again. Logan downshifted for the ford. Not your arm, not any part of you. You don't get to be small and breakable in this world, kid. The world eats small and breakable, so we're gonna make you something else. Harry looked out at the white hills going by. What if I can't? You can, Logan said. You already started, you just been doing it scared. We're gonna teach you to do it on purpose. The training began the way Logan's own had begun, a lifetime and a war ago, which was to say it began with the cold. He took Harry out on the hill in weather that kept sane people indoors and taught him how not to die in it, how to read the sky and know when the cloud coming over the ridge meant rain and when it meant something worse, how to find the lee of a thing, how to keep your feet dry because wet feet in the cold would kill you slower and surer than any man with a knife. How to build a fire one-handed in the wind with the materials the land gave you, and how to build it small and smokeless when you didn't want to be found. Harry, who had spent 6 years being cold on purpose by people who did it to hurt him, learned to be cold on purpose in a way that kept him alive, and somewhere in the difference between those two things a knot in him began very slowly to loosen. "You're shiverin'," Logan said the first hard day, both of them crouched in the heather with the wind cutting through. "I'm sea cold. Shiverin's fine. Shiverin' means your body's still fightin'. It's when you stop shiverin' you gotta worry. Cold's not your enemy, cold's just information. It's tellin' you what to do next, so what's it tellin' you?" Harry thought, teeth going. "Get out of the wind, get a fire. So do that, don't tell me about it." Do it. Harry did it. It took him 40 minutes and 3 failures and a string of words he'd learned from Logan that Logan pretended not to hear. And when the little flame finally caught in the cup of his hands and held, he looked up with something raw and bright in his face, and Logan nodded once and said, "There. Now you'll never freeze. That's one way the world can't kill you," crossed off the list. "We got a lot of items on the list. Let's go home. You've earned your supper." That was how Logan praised when he praised, by treating a thing as done and crossing it off and moving to the next. Harry learned to hear it. He learned that "you've earned your supper" and "not bad" and "that'll do" were the whole vocabulary of a man who had decided, somewhere across his long, strange life, that words were cheap and worth less the more you spent them, and that the way you told someone they mattered was to keep showing up every day in the cold and teach them how to live. They worked through the winter and into the spring. Tracking how to tell a deer's trail from a sheep's, how old a print was by the crumble of its edges, how to move through bracken without sounding like a man moving through bracken. Logan would send him out to find where he'd hidden a tin in the hills and time how long it took, and the times got shorter. Knives, how to hold one, how to keep one, how to cut toward the world and never toward yourself. Logan gave him his own when he turned 7, a small fixed blade with a bone handle, and told him a man's knife was his responsibility and his alone, and Harry cleaned it every night like a religion. And fighting, that came last and slowest, because Logan was careful with it. "Fightin' isn't about anger," Logan told him, the day they started in the cleared space behind the croft where the grass was worn down to dirt. "Angry men lose. Angry men telegraph everything. They wind up, they shout, they swing big, and a calm man takes them apart while they're still gettin' started. You remember the lay-by, calm's the tell. You want to be the calm one, always. No matter what's happenin' inside you, on the outside you're a still pond and the other guy can't read a thing off you, and then you do exactly what needs doin' and not one motion more." He didn't teach the kid to box exactly or to wrestle exactly. He taught him the older, dirtier thing underneath those, the thing Logan had been doing since before there were rules, where the body is weak, where it can't take pressure, how a small fast person beats a big slow one by never being where the big one expects and by making every contact count. He taught him to fall without breaking. He taught him to get up faster than he went down. He taught him that the first rule of a fight is don't be in one, and the second rule is if you're in one, end it, because a fight that goes long is a fight you can lose. "You're little," Logan said more than once, pinning Harry gently in the dirt and then talking him through how to get loose. "Little's not a weakness if you're smart about it. Little's fast. Little fits where big can't reach. You let a big man get his hands set on you, you're done, so you don't let him. You're already gone, you're behind him. You're at his knee, his throat, his eyes, and then you're 10 feet away and he's still turning around looking for you. Again, get loose, don't think, move." Harry moved. He had a gift for it Logan hadn't expected, a feral quickness, a low animal sense of where a body's balance was and how to take it from him. Some of it was the abuse, Logan knew, the years of reading a violent man's mood off the set of his shoulders, of knowing a half-second early when the hand was coming. The Dursleys had, without meaning to, built half a soldier. Logan was finishing the job and turning the wiring around so it pointed outward instead of in. Harry never cried during training. He took the falls and the bruises and the failures with a flat patience that would have unsettled Logan in anyone else, and unsettled him plenty in a 7-year-old. But he laughed sometimes now, when he got a move right, a startled bark of a laugh like he'd surprised himself by being capable of the sound, and Logan would have walked into a Weapon X facility barehanded before he'd have admitted out loud how much he lived for that laugh. The magic came up out of him on a clear afternoon in May, and it nearly took the roof off the byre. They were stacking peat. Boring work, the kind Logan used to settle the kid when the training had wound him too tight, and Harry was up on the stack throwing bricks of it down and Logan was catching and laying them, and the kid lost his footing on the wet top of the pile and went off the back of it, 8 feet, head first toward the stone of the byre wall. Logan was already moving. He was fast, faster than anything human, and even he wasn't going to get there. He didn't have to. 3 feet from the wall, Harry stopped. Just stopped in the air, the whole falling weight of him arrested as though the world had reconsidered, and hung there an instant, and then the air around him cracked, the byre door blew off its top hinge, the stacked peat exploded outward in a black hail, and Harry dropped the last 3 feet into the soft ruin of it, unhurt, gasping, the bright humming charge rolling off him so strong this time that Logan's fillings ached and the hair stood up on his arms. For a moment neither of them moved. Peat dust drifted down, the byre door swung on its one good hinge and stopped. "Okay," Logan said into the silence. He kept his voice exactly level, the still pond voice, because the kid's eyes had gone wide and white-edged and the charge in the air was feeding off the fear, building toward something. "Okay, you're fine. Nothing broke that I care about. Look at me, Harry, you're fine." I didn't mean to," the words came out fast and climbing. "It just, the wall was there and I didn't want to. I'm sorry. I'll fix the door, please don't. I didn't mean to do it. Things happen. They always said things happen around me and it's wrong. I'm wrong, please." There it was, the whole machinery the Dursleys had built, the certainty that the strange thing in him was a crime he'd be punished for, the apology rehearsed 1,000 times in a dark cupboard. The charge in the air spiked with it. Somewhere in the croft a window cracked. Logan crossed the wreckage of the peat stack and got down on his knees in it so his eyes were level with the kid's, and he took Harry by both shoulders, firm, the grip used to bring the kid back from a nightmare. "Hey, look at me, not the wall, me." He waited until the green eyes found his. "You listen now, because I'm only gonna explain this once and then it's just true forever. That thing you just did. Saved your own life. You were gonna crack your skull on that wall and instead you caught yourself. That's not wrong. That's the opposite of wrong. That's the best thing I've seen all year." "But they said it's unnatural. They were idiots," Logan said flatly. "They were small, frightened, ordinary idiots and they saw something they couldn't do and it scared them, so they called it bad and they hurt you for it. That's what scared, stupid people do. It's the oldest story there is. It's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with them." He gave the shoulders a small shake. "I've known people like you, different than you, but like you. People the world's got something extra. People who can do what nobody else can, and you know what the world calls them. Sometimes monsters, sometimes gods. Mostly the world just calls them a problem and tries to put them in a box, same as you've been in a box your whole life. And the ones who make it, the ones who don't let the world break them, they all figure out the same thing in the end." He tapped Harry's chest over the sternum where his own live nerve sat. "It's yours, whatever it is. It came out of you, it belongs to you, and the only question that matters is whether you run it or it runs you. And right now it runs you. It comes out when you're scared on its own, big and messy, and one day that's gonna be a problem. So we fix it, same as the cold, same as fightin'. We make you not scared and we teach you to do on purpose what you've been doing by accident." The charge in the air had been bleeding down while he talked. The window stopped its slow spreading crack. Harry's breathing came back under him. You're not getting rid of me," Harry said. It wasn't quite a question this time. It was a thing he needed to hear confirmed. "Kid, you could have blown the roof clean off and I'd still want you for supper." Logan stood and pulled the kid up out of the peat by one hand, and looked at the wrecked door and the cracked window and the 8 feet of empty air Harry had hung in. "Honestly," he said, "that was the most useful thing that arm's done since I said it. We're gonna make something out of you, cub. God help whoever tries to stop us." It was the first time he'd called him that, cub. It came out without his planning it, the way the truest things did, and Harry heard it and held still a second the way he'd held still over the new boots in the shop. And then he picked up a brick of peat and threw it at Logan's chest, hard, grinning, the startled, bright grin, and Logan let it hit him and said, "Now you're learnin'," and that was that. After that they worked the strangeness like they worked everything else, an hour a day, out on the hill where there was nothing to break. Logan had no idea how to teach it. He'd never had a power that lived outside his own body. His was just bone and rage and a thing in his blood that wouldn't let him die. But he knew how to teach a frightened animal to trust its own legs, and that turned out to be most of it. He'd have him hold a stone in his cupped hands and try to make it rise, and nothing would happen. An hour, 2 hours, the kid red-faced and straining, and Logan would say, "You're trying to grab it. Stop grabbing. When you did it by accident you weren't grabbing anything, you just needed it and it came. Quit shoving. Ask." And one afternoon in June the stone rose, an inch off the kid's palms, trembling then 2, while Harry held his breath and didn't grab, just asked, and Logan sat back on his heels in the heather and watched a 7-year-old levitate a rock by kneading it gently and said nothing at all, because some things you don't put words on, you just witness, so the kid knows you saw. By the end of the summer Harry could call the stone to his hand from 10 feet, light a fire without a match if he concentrated, and once memorably turn the croft's surly cat a deep and outraged shade of blue that took 4 days to fade. He couldn't do any of it when his blood was up. That was the wall they kept hitting. Calm in the heather with all day to try, he was getting somewhere. Scared or angry, it still went off like a grenade with the pin already out. big and wild and outside his hands. Logan filed that as the central problem, the thing that would have to be cracked before Harry was truly safe, and kept working it, and didn't know that the test was already coming up the glen. The life they built in between the lessons was a small one, and Harry guarded it the way he'd once guarded crusts of bread. It had a shape to it. Logan rose before light and Harry rose when he smelled the coffee, and they ate standing up at the counter most mornings because the one table was usually covered in something Logan was mending. They worked the day, the hill or the wood or the strangeness, and in the evening Logan cooked, badly, the same 4 meals in rotation, and Harry ate all of it and said it was good and meant it, because food cooked for you by someone who wanted you fed tasted different than food you'd stolen, and he was still learning the size of that difference. After supper there was the fire, and the fire was the best of it. Logan would sit with the bottle he barely touched, and Harry would lie on the hearthrug with one of the paperbacks Logan bought him by the boxful in the village, because the kid read as he ate, fast and hungry, and braced for it to be taken away, and Logan had decided early that a kid who could read could go anywhere in his own head, no matter how small the room got. Sometimes Logan talked, in the slow sideways way he had, about places he'd been and was sure of, if not the years attached to them. The smell of a particular sea, a mountain in a country that didn't exist by that name anymore. He never talked about the program at the fire. The fire was for the good things, the few he'd kept. On Harry's birthday, the one they'd picked, because Logan had asked him when it was and Harry hadn't known, had genuinely not known, which was a fact Logan put away and did not comment on. Logan made him pick a day off the calendar, and that became his birthday forever after. He gave Harry the bone-handled knife that year and a pocket watch that didn't work, because Harry had liked the weight of it in the junk shop, and a man should carry something that's only his, and a cake that came out of the oven flat as a roof slate and tasted, Harry said solemnly, like the best thing he'd ever had, which made Logan look at the fire for a while. It was a small life. Logan had lived 100 years of big ones, wars and weapons and the inside of cages, and none of them had been worth a single ordinary evening of this. Him on the rug with his paperback and the fire drawing badly in the wind off the tops, and Logan knew it, and held onto it with both hands the way he'd told the kid to hold onto the things he got to keep, and somewhere underneath the holding ran the cold, steady knowledge that the world did not let men like him keep things. It came for them. It always had. It came in October in a Range Rover and an old estate car, 5 men, near dusk. Logan smelled them before he heard the engines, the wrong smell for the glen, cigarettes and gun oil and city sweat, and under it the flat, sour reek of men who'd come to do harm and had told themselves a story that made it fine. He was in the yard splitting the last of the winter wood. He set the axe down against the block, not hurried, and said without turning, "Harry, inside, back room. You remember what we said about the back room?" Harry remembered. They drilled it the way they drilled everything. If men come, you go to the back room, you take your knife, you get the window open so you've got an exit, and you do not come out, no matter what you hear, until I come and get you, or until it's been quiet a long time and you're sure. The kid went without a word and without a backward look, and Logan heard the back room window slide up on its runner, the kid doing it right, and then he gave the yard his full attention. The cars came up the track and stopped, and the 5 men got out, and they arranged themselves the way men do when they think numbers are the same as advantage. 2 had bats, 1 had a length of chain. 1 hung back by the cars with his hand inside his jacket, which made him the only one Logan took seriously. The 5th came forward, a heavy-set man with a soft southern voice and rings on his fingers, the talker, the one who thought he was running it. "Quiet up here," the talker said, looking around at the glen going gold and then gray. "Lonely, man could disappear up here and come askin' for a long while." He smiled. "We heard there was a fella up this way, keeps to himself, pays cash. Asked some questions in the wrong pubs a while back about old things, old programs. Word gets around. Somebody somewhere would like to know if you're the fella. And these boys and me, we get paid whether you talk easy or talk hard. So," he spread the ringed hands, "which is it gonna be?" Logan looked at them one by one, slow, reading the hands the way he'd taught Harry to: bats, chain, the hand in the jacket, the talker's rings. "You really came all the way up here," Logan said, "and parked your cars in my yard, and you didn't bring near enough men." The talker's smile slipped a notch. "There's 5 of us, friend." "Yeah," Logan said, "I counted. Go home. I'm only gonna offer it once, and I'm offerin' it because there's a kid in that house, and I'd rather he didn't have to learn this particular lesson tonight. Get in your cars. Tell whoever's payin' you that you couldn't find the place, live to spend it." He picked the axe back up and held it loose at his side, not raised, just held. "That's the easy one. You don't want the hard one, trust me on that." He watched the talker do the math and get it wrong, the way men like that always got it wrong, because nothing in the talker's whole life had taught him that one calm man with an axe and a 3-day beard could be the most dangerous thing in a county. The talker nodded to the man with the chain. It went fast after that, it always did. Logan had told the kid 100 times that a fight that goes long is a fight you can lose, and Logan did not lose, and so it did not go long. The chain came first, a wide whistling arc aimed at Logan's head. He stepped inside it, let it wrap his raised forearm instead of his skull, and yanked, and the man on the other end came with it, straight onto the flat of the axe head that Logan brought up into his sternum without much heat, the way you'd swat a door shut. The man folded around it and sat down hard and stopped being part of the evening. The bat split to flank him, which was the smart play and would have worked on someone slower. Logan dropped the axe because the axe was too much for what these men were, and he'd meant the offer about the kid, and met the first bat with his bare hands, catching the wood mid-swing, turning the wrist past where wrists go, taking the bat as it fell. He didn't use it. He put the man down with an elbow and turned with the same motion to catch the second bat across his back, a blow that would have dropped a normal spine, and that did nothing at all to Logan's, because there was a metal that didn't exist laced through every bone he had, and the bat rang off it like a stick off a girder. The man felt the wrongness of it travel up his arms, felt that he'd hit something that should not have been a person, and in the half-second that took his face apart, Logan had hold of his jacket and the ground rose up to meet him. 2 and 3. The talker was already backing toward the cars, the rings going up in front of his face. Now wait, now hold on, it's just business, it's not personal, you don't have to. Where's the 5th one? Logan said. Because there were 4 men in his yard, 3 of them down and the talker backing up, and the one who'd had his hand in his jacket was not among them. And Logan's head came up and around and he caught it then, the scent he should have been tracking the whole time, gun oil and city sweat, gone wide around the side of the croft, toward the back, toward an open window, toward the kid. Harry heard the man at the window before he saw him. He'd done everything right. Knife out, window up, his back to the corner where he could see both the door and the gap, the way Logan had drilled. He'd listened to the yard, to the talk, and then the short, ugly sounds of the fight, and he'd stayed put the way he'd promised, even when every nerve told him to run to the noise or away from it. But Logan hadn't planned for a man coming in the back, and now there was one, a lean man swinging a leg over the sill into the dim of the back room, a black pistol in his hand, his eyes finding the small shape in the corner. Well, the man said, soft, almost kind, "Hello, you'd be the leverage." Harry did not scream and did not freeze. Those were both gone out of him, drilled out across a year on the hill. He read the man's hands, the way he'd been taught, the gun in the right, the left coming up to grab, and he understood with a cold, clear 7-year-old certainty that he could not win this with a knife, that the man was too big and too fast and already too close. So he didn't use the knife. The charge came up in him the way it always came when he was scared, big and wild, the byre door, the cracked window, the byre door, the cracked window, except this time, somewhere in the white roar of it, he heard Logan's voice flat and level under the panic. "Quit shovin'. Ask. You're the calm one. No matter what's happenin' inside you, on the outside you're still pawn." And Harry, with a man's gun coming up on him, reached down into the wild thing and for the first time did not let it run him. He took one breath, in for 4. He fixed on the pistol, the one thing in the world that mattered, and he asked. The gun tore itself out of the man's hand and across the room and through the wall, taking a fist-sized chunk of stone with it. And an instant later the man followed, lifted off his feet and slammed up against the ceiling and held there pinned, kicking, by nothing at all, while the bright humming charge filled the little room and rattled the glass in the window frame. That was how Logan found them, coming through the door with the claws already out, 3 of them on each hand, the first time Harry had ever seen them, 11 inches of bright metal that caught the last gray light. He took in the room in a glance, the kid in the corner with his hand up and his face white and set, the gun gone, the man stuck to the ceiling like a wasp. "Huh," Logan said. I can't hold him much longer." Harry's voice shook, the charge guttering, the man on the ceiling already starting to slip. "You don't have to," Logan said. "I got him. Let go, cub. Look at me, not him. Let go." Harry let go. The man dropped. He didn't get the chance to do anything with the floor when he reached it, because Logan was already there, and Logan was not gentle with this one the way he'd been almost gentle with the men in the yard, because this one had pointed a gun at him. And there's a kind of arithmetic that Logan had carried his whole long life that does not allow for that. He did not draw it out. He was precise and he was fast, and the claws did the work they were made for once, and the man who had called Harry leverage stopped being a problem, and Logan slid the claws back in before he turned around so the kid wouldn't see them red. Then he crouched down in front of the kid and looked him over, hands, face, eyes, the quick total inventory he did after every fall in training, and found him whole. You hurt, number. Harry's eyes weren't on Logan's face. They were on his hands, on the backs of them where the claws had come from and gone, where there was no wound, no slot, nothing but scarred skin and 3 faint white lines between the knuckles. Those came out of you. Yeah, did it hurt? Logan considered lying. He'd lied to Harry about exactly one thing, the bad dreams, and that had been a mercy, and this didn't qualify. Every time, he said, 100 years near enough, hurts every time. Harry reached out slow, the way he'd reached for the green jumper, checking for the catch. He put one finger on the back of Logan's hand, on the white line where the metal lived. Logan held still and let him. The kid wasn't afraid. Logan had watched a lot of people see the claws for the first time, and they were always afraid, and the kid who'd grown up in a cupboard touched the scar where they came out with the plain, grave curiosity of someone meeting a part of the only family he had. Somebody did this to you, Harry said. It wasn't a question. He knew the shape of done to you from the inside. Somebody did this to me, Logan agreed. A long time ago, people in a program. They put the metal in, they took most of what I used to be out, the memories, the name I was born with, I don't get those back. They made me into a weapon, and then they pointed me at things. He turned his hand over so Harry could see the palm, the ordinary scarred palm. And then I got loose, and I've been getting looser ever since. And one rainy night I smelled a kid in a cupboard, and here we are. He stood. Stay in here another minute. I gotta talk to the loud one before he drives off and tells stories. The talker hadn't driven off. The talker was sitting on the ground by the open door of the Range Rover with his hands shaking and his rings clicking against each other, looking at the 3 men down in the yard and doing, finally, the arithmetic he should have done at the start. Logan stood over him and didn't bother with the claws. He didn't need them for this. Who paid you? Logan said. I don't. It was a middleman, a phone number, that's all. I swear to God. What did they ask for? A man. Older, hard-looking, keeps to himself, maybe foreign, maybe not, healed up wrong from things he shouldn't have walked away from. Somebody put the word out months ago, all the way down the chain, asking pubs, asking the kind of men who hear things, anybody matching that, there's money. We figured easy money. We didn't know, I swear we didn't know what you, months ago, Logan said. From where? I don't know. America, the number was American, that's all I please, America. Logan stood with that in the gold gone gray light of the glen. Somebody across an ocean had put a description of him down every wire and into every gutter where hard men drink, and paid for it, and waited, and the net had finally twitched up here at the top of a Scottish glen because a fat man with rings couldn't resist easy money. The program, or what was left of it, or the other thing, the worst thing, the one with the long claws and the long memory that he didn't let himself think about by name most days. It didn't matter which. What mattered was that the net had found the glen, and the glen had a boy in it. Here's the message you're gonna carry back, Logan said. You get these 3 in the cars, the live ones, and you drive south and you don't stop, and you tell your phone number that you found nothing up here but an empty house and a story. You tell them the man they want is a ghost. Because if you tell them anything else, if you so much as breathe that there's a kid up here, I will find you and I will find them, and I'll do to all of you what I should have done to that one in the back room. You understand the message. The talker understood the message. He understood it so thoroughly that he wet himself a second time and didn't notice. He got his men into the cars, the ones who could be moved, and he drove south into the dark, and Logan stood in the empty yard until the engine noise was gone off the wind, and then he went back inside to him. They didn't sleep in the croft that night. Logan didn't say why and Harry didn't ask. He just packed the truck the way they drilled, fast and quiet, everything that mattered in under 10 minutes, and they drove an hour down the glen and over a pass and slept in the truck in a forestry plantation with the doors locked, and Logan's senses turned all the way up. It was like the first nights almost. The kid across the bench under the wool blanket, the man against the door. Logan, Harry said into the dark, are they gonna keep coming? Logan didn't insult him with a number. The kid had earned better than that, tonight especially. Maybe, he said, somebody's looking for me, has been a while. I've been hoppin'. If I kept us small and quiet and off the map it'd blow past, but you saw tonight, small and quiet only works till somebody gets lucky. He was quiet a moment, the plantation creaking around them. Truth is, kid, I've been thinkin' about it wrong. I've been hidden you, and you can't hide a thing that glows in the dark, and you glow. That power's gettin' bigger every month, and one day it's gonna be too big to keep up a glen, and the men with the phone numbers are gonna feel it from across the world, and I'd rather we picked where we stood than have 'em pick it for us. He shifted against the door. There's a man I know, across the water, runs a place for people like you. Kids the world calls a problem. He's got walls that mean something and people who'd help me teach you, people who know more about what's in you than I'll ever figure out splittin' wood. I always swore I'd never set foot in that place again. Too many rules, too many do-gooders, but he looked over at the small shape under the blanket. I've been swearing off a lot of things lately and breaking every oath the second you need me to. Harry was quiet, turning it over as he turned everything over, testing it before trusting it. Would you stay, he asked, at the place, or would you leave me there? And there it was again, the only fear the kid had left that Logan hadn't been able to drill out of him, the one that lived under all the others. I'd stay, Logan said. I'd hate every minute of it, the walls, the rules, all of it, and I'd stay anyway because you'd be there and the deal hasn't changed since the truck. You're stuck. You're stuck if it's a cupboard, you're stuck if it's a glen, you're stuck if it's a school full of do-gooders behind a wall. Wherever you are, that's where I am. That's the whole of it. Now go to sleep. We got a long way to go and I'm not carrying you. Harry went to sleep. He did it easy these days. That was the thing Logan marked, lying awake against the door with the plantation creaking and his senses sweeping the dark for engines that didn't come. A year ago Harry had slept on top of the blankets with his boots on, ready to run, and now he went down soft and deep and quick, a kid who decided he was safe, who'd handed the keeping of himself over to the old wolf by the door and didn't think twice about it. It was the single most dangerous thing Logan had ever been trusted with, and the most foolish thing the kid had ever done, trusting a man who'd been built into a weapon and worn down into a drifter and had no business being anybody's family. He kept the watch anyway. He'd keep it as long as there was breath in him, which, as he was built, was likely to be a long, long time. Somewhere south, a fat man drove through the dark carrying a lie that might hold and might not. Somewhere west, across an ocean, a phone number waited for a call that wouldn't come, and would, in time, send something worse than 5 men with bats. And in a locked truck in a Scottish plantation, a boy who could turn a cat blue and pin a gunman to a ceiling slept the sleep of the safe, while the thing that kept him safe sat up against the door and watched the dark and did not look away from it once. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The School on the Hill. Getting a boy with no birth certificate across an ocean was the kind of problem Logan had solved before, for himself, in worse decades than this one. It took a man in Rotterdam who owed him, a week of waiting in a port hotel where Harry counted the ships and learned 40 words of Dutch out of boredom, and 2 passports that named them as an uncle and nephew with a surname neither of them had been born to. Harry took to the lie as he took to everything Logan taught him, completely and without fuss, and by the time they landed in New York, he could answer to the false name faster than Logan could. You're a better liar than me, Logan said in the rental car, pulling north out of the city into the green money country of the Hudson Valley. You taught me, Harry said. Yeah, startin' to regret that. It was high autumn when they came up the long drive, the maples gone red and gold over a road that curved through grounds too big and too tended to belong to anyone Logan trusted. The house at the end of it was a mansion, honest stone, older than most things in this young country, with wings and chimneys and tall windows throwing back the afternoon light. Kids were out on the lawns. A girl sat reading 6 feet off the ground with no chair under her. 2 boys were throwing a ball that changed direction in the air against every law Logan respected. Off past the tree line something moved fast and blew through the branches and was gone. Harry took it all in from the passenger seat with the flat, total attention he gave everything, the survivor's inventory, exits and angles, and who's calm. Logan watched him watch it. This is the place, Harry said, not a question. This is the place. You said you swore you'd never come back. I did say that. Logan parked the car on the gravel and didn't get out. He sat with both hands on the wheel and looked at the big stone house the way a man looks at a thing he's lost arguments to before. I've broken bigger promises for worse reasons. Come on, and kid, while we're in there, you keep your hand off the strange stuff unless I say. Place like this, everybody's got an eye on everybody. We watch first. We always watch first. Calms the tell, Harry said. Calms the tell out. The man who met them in the front hall was in a wheelchair, and he was bald, and he was smiling, and Logan's whole frame changed the moment he came into the room, a wariness and an old grudging warmth tangling together in the set of his shoulders. The man's eyes, pale and very steady, went to Logan first and then settled on Harry with a quality of attention Harry had never been on the receiving end of, like being read in a language he didn't know he was written in. Logan, the man said, his voice was low and unhurried, a voice with all the time in the world in it. It has been a long time. I confess I had begun to think you meant it, about never darkening my door again. Don't get used to it, Chuck, Logan said. I'm here for the kid, not the brochure. So I see, the man wheeled himself closer and stopped a polite distance from Harry at the kid's own eye level, which Harry noticed and catalogued that the man in the chair had arranged it so he didn't loom. My name is Charles Xavier, this is my school, and you are not, I think, quite what your uncle's papers say you are. Few people who arrive here are. The pale eyes warmed. May I know your real name? Harry looked at Logan. Logan gave him the small nod that meant it's all right, I've got the room. Harry, he said, Harry. Xavier said it the way Logan had said it that first night, like a thing with weight. Welcome, Harry. I'd like, if you'll permit me, to understand a little of what you can do so that we can help you. I have a gift not unlike a very polite knock at a door. I never enter a mind without leave, and I will not enter yours. But if you'll let me listen, only listen, from the doorstep, it would tell me a great deal. You may say a great many people here have said no to me, and I think rather better of them for it. Harry weighed it. He'd spent 2 years learning to read men's hands and the calm behind their eyes, and the man in the chair had the deepest calm Harry had ever stood in front of, deeper than Logan's even, a stillness like the bottom of a lake. It should have frightened him. Quite, and that was its own kind of warning that a thing this powerful could feel this gentle. You'll only listen, Harry said, not push anything around in there, not take anything out. Something crossed Xavier's face there and gone. Logan told you then about what was done to him. He tells me the truth, Harry said. It's the rule, a good rule. Xavier folded his hands. I give you my word, Harry, which I do not give lightly and have never broken to a child. I will only listen. Nothing taken, nothing moved. And you may close the door on me the instant you wish, and I will be gone, and we will simply talk like ordinary men instead. Harry looked at Logan one more time, and Logan was watching Xavier and not Harry, watching the way a guard dog watches a vet with a needle, and that was answer enough. If Logan had thought the man would hurt him, the man would already be bleeding. All right, Harry said. Xavier closed his eyes. For a long moment nothing happened that anyone in the hall could have seen. Harry felt the knock, exactly as promised, a presence at the threshold of himself, courteous, waiting. He felt it look, not rummage, just look, the way you'd glance into a lit room from a dark hallway. And then he felt the presence go very still, the way Logan went still when something on the wind didn't add up. Xavier's eyes opened. He was quiet a moment, and when he spoke his unhurried voice had a new thing under it, a carefulness, the tone of a man choosing his footing on ground he hadn't known was there. Well, he said, that is interesting. What? Logan said, what you see, not what I expected. Xavier wheeled back a few inches as though to take in the whole of the kid at once. Logan, I have read the minds of perhaps 10,000 mutants. I know the texture of the X gene the way you know a scent. It has a signature, always, a particular shape to the power, whatever form the power takes. This boy does not have it. He shook his head slowly. There is no X gene in him. He is not a mutant. Logan's jaw worked. Then what blew the door off my buyer? Something older. Xavier's eyes had not left Harry. I have felt it's like only a handful of times, at the very edge of Cerebro's range, places in the world that hum with a power that has nothing to do with genetics. It does not live in his cells, Logan. It lives in, I want to say, his blood, but that is only the nearest word. It is bound to his will and to his bloodline both. It is shaped by intention rather than instinct. It is, for lack of a better and older term, and here Xavier paused, and the word he chose with the weight of a man who did not use it lightly, magic. Genuine, structured magic. I did not until this afternoon know for certain that such a thing walked the earth in a living child, and someone somewhere, his gaze flicked at last to Logan, has taught it to fear itself very badly. That part I knew, Logan said. That part I've been working on, and doing well from what I saw. Xavier inclined his head, a small courtesy aimed at Harry. You have built something steady in there on a foundation that was poured very crooked. Whoever raised this child before you should answer for it. Whoever is raising him now, the pale eyes returned to Logan, and the old grudging warmth came back into them, has done more good than he will ever admit to. Don't, Logan said. I won't, Xavier smiled. I know better than most what you'll sit still for. He turned the chair toward the long corridor. Come, both of you. You'll want to see the place, Harry, and I expect your uncle wants to count the exits, which he is welcome to do. He always does. We have a great deal to discuss, and some of it can wait for supper, and some of it cannot. The school ran deeper than the house. That was the first thing Harry understood, and it pleased the careful part of him, because a place with a hidden depth was a place that took its own safety seriously. Behind a wall in the lower levels there was steel, an elevator that dropped further than the foundations had any business going, corridors the color of a gun. Xavier showed them as a man shows a guest the rooms he is proud of, and Logan walked it with his eyes moving, counting, the way Xavier had said he would. A woman met them at the bottom, tall, dark-skinned, with hair the white of a winter sky and eyes that went over Harry with a warmth that didn't ask anything of him. The air around her was very faintly wrong, charged, alive, the way the glen got just before a storm broke over the tops. "This is Oraro," Xavier said. "She teaches here. Among other things, she can call the weather." "Oraro, this is Harry. He's going to be staying with us a while, he and his uncle." The famous uncle. Oraro's mouth curved. She looked at Logan without a trace of the wariness most people wore around him, and Logan, to Harry's interest, looked back at her almost civil. "Charles has told stories. Most of them ended with you walking out a door." She crouched to Harry's level, the way Xavier had, the way Logan did, and Harry began to suspect this was a place where adults had learned not to loom. "You don't have to perform for anyone here, Harry. Whatever you can do, it's yours, and you show it when you want and never because someone asked. That's the only rule that matters in this building. The rest is just keeping the floors from melting." "Do they melt a lot?" Harry asked. "You'd be surprised," she said. "How often?" Up the corridor a door stood open on the largest room Harry had ever seen, a great empty chamber of metal, lit cold from above, where two older kids stood facing a thing that wasn't there. Harry watched a wall of stone rise up out of a floor that a second ago had been flat, watched a boy his own size throw out both hands and stop it, hold it, the stone trembling against nothing, sweat starting on the kid's face. Beside him a girl drew fire up out of her palms and hurled it, and the fire splashed against the stone and ran down it like water. "The danger room," Xavier said. "It teaches them control. Power without control is only a danger to the one who has it and to everyone he loves." He let that sit and did not look at Harry, which was its own kind of looking. "When you are ready, Harry, and only then, it will teach you too. Though I suspect," and now a thread of dry humor came into the unhurried voice, "it has never met anything quite like you, and we may both learn something." They learned something that very afternoon, and it wasn't planned. The fire girl finished with her drill, came out into the corridor flushed and grinning and saw the new kid, and being 12 and showing off, she snapped her fingers and lit a small flame dancing on her thumb, casual, a hello. "You do anything?" she asked Harry. "Or are you a flatskin?" Harry didn't know the word. He knew the tone, though the test in it, the same one boys had run on him in a Surrey schoolyard before they learned that Dudley's cousin was worth hitting. He looked at the little flame on her thumb. And because Logan had told him to keep his hand off the strange stuff, and because he was 8 and the girl had a tone, he did the smallest contrary thing he could think of. He looked at the flame and he asked it, quiet, as he asked the stone in the heather to come here. The flame leapt off her thumb. It crossed 3 feet of air against every instinct fire has, and it landed on Harry's open palm, and it sat there, and it changed, the orange of it going the deep, impossible blue of a thing that had decided to obey a different law, and it did not burn him. The fire girl stared at her own empty thumb. Down the corridor in the danger room, the stone the other boy was holding wobbled because Harry had turned to look. "Huh," Logan said into the silence, in exactly the tone he'd used over the gunman on the ceiling. Oraro's eyebrows had gone up. Xavier had gone very still in his chair, watching the blue flame in Harry's hand with the focus of a scholar who has just seen a word in a language he'd been told was dead. "I took her fire," Harry said, suddenly unsure, the flame guttering as his certainty did. "I'm sorry, do you want it back?" "You," the fire girl said with the deep, offended awe of one specialist meeting another, "are so weird." "He did not take your fire," Xavier corrected gently. "He asked it. Your power is a part of you, Sarah, written in every cell. It could no more leave you than your shadow could. What he did was speak to the fire itself, over your head as it were, in a grammar that has nothing to do with the X gene at all. 2 different powers touching the same flame from 2 different worlds." He let out a slow breath. "Remarkable. In 30 years I have not seen the 2 things meet. Harry, you may let it go now." Gently as you would set down something borrowed. Harry set the blue flame down. It went out against the steel floor without a mark. The fire girl lit a new one on her thumb just to prove she still could, and looked at it differently than she had a minute ago. Logan said nothing at all, but that night when they were given a room with 2 beds and a quiet wing, he sat on the edge of his and looked at the kid for a while in the lamplight before he spoke. "You disobeyed me today," Logan said. "I told you keep your hand off the strange stuff." "She had a tone." "I know she had a tone." Logan rubbed his jaw. "You weren't wrong to answer it. You were wrong to do it without saying so first, and we'll work on that, because in a place like this, the strange stuff has consequences I can't see common." But he looked at the kid, 8 years old, who had reached across a corridor and taken fire out of the air and not been burned. "I've been around the gifted my whole life, kid. I have never seen anybody do what you did today, not once. You're not one of them, you're not one of anything. You're your own thing, and that's gonna make you strong, and it's gonna make you a target, and I need you to understand both halves of that. You hearin' me?" "I hear you." "Good. Lights out. We watch first, remember. Tomorrow we just watch." The first weeks were the hardest, and they were hardest in the ways nobody but Logan could see. A house full of safe, fed, gifted children was, to a boy who had been none of those things, a foreign country with no map. Harry did not know how to be in it. He hoarded bread rolls from the long table out of an old reflex and hid them in his room, and Logan found them and said nothing and kept the table full. The same lesson from the Glen, the same lesson from the truck, patient as weather. There is more, nobody takes it, you can stop. Harry flinched when adults moved fast near him, and the adults here learned, the way Logan had learned not to. He woke some nights certain he was back in the cupboard with the bolt thrown, and he would come padding through the dark wing to Logan's door, 8 years old and ashamed of it, and Logan would already be awake, because Logan was always awake, and would say nothing about it, just point at the folding cot he kept made up in the corner for exactly this, and Harry would lie down in it and sleep. One such night near Christmas, with the snow coming down blue past the tall window and the great house creaking around them, Harry didn't sleep right away. "Logan," he said into the dark, "is this home now?" Logan took a while on it. He'd had 100 years of rooms, and none of them had been that word, and he wasn't going to hand him a thing he didn't believe just because it was the easy thing to hand him at midnight. "I don't know what that word means," Logan said finally. "Honest answer. I've had cells I slept in longer than most men keep a house. I had a cage once, real one, bars, and I was in it years, and you know what's funny, part of me got comfortable in there, 'cause comfortable's just whatever you stop fightin'. That's not home, that's surrender with a roof on it." He shifted against the headboard. "Here's what I know, a cage is a place that keeps you in. A home's a place you'd come back to even if the door was wide open and nobody was mackin' you. That's the whole difference, and it's the only one that matters." He looked over at the small shape in the cot. "This place got walls I don't trust and rules I won't follow and a man in a visor who thinks I'm trouble, and he's right. But the door's open, kid. We could put the false papers back in our pockets and drive out the gate tonight and nobody'd stop us. And I look at you eatin' breakfast next to that little kid who spoils things, mackin' him less alone 'cause you know what alone costs, and I think, yeah, I'd come back to this, even with the door open, so maybe that's home. Maybe that's the closest either of us is gonna get, and maybe that's plenty." The snow came down. Somewhere below them the old house settled. "I'd come back too," Harry said, "if you were here." "Then it's home," Logan said. "That's the only part of it I actually care about. Go to sleep." And Harry, who had once slept on top of the blankets with his boots on, ready to run, slept. They stayed. That was the thing neither of them said out loud. That 1 week became a month, and a month became the leaves coming down, and then the first snow gray against the tall windows. And the truck sat unused in a garage full of cars worth more than Logan would steal. And the rental got returned, and the false papers went into a drawer. And a man who had not slept under the same roof for more than a season in living memory found that he had a room with his name on the door and could not. When he honestly examined it, name the day he'd decided to keep it, he did not become a teacher. He made that clear to everyone repeatedly, and then the older kids started turning up at the edge of the grounds at dawn where Logan ran himself through the old hard motions, and they watched, and a few of them asked, and Logan found himself, against every word he'd said, teaching a clutch of gifted teenagers how to fight when their gifts failed them, which Xavier had been trying and failing to arrange for years. Logan would have denied to his last breath that he enjoyed it. He was there every morning at 6 regardless of weather, and when the cocky telekinetic boy from the danger room learned to put a man down with an elbow instead of his mind and grinned about it, something eased in Logan that he didn't examine too closely. Not everyone was glad to have him. The man who ran the school's day-to-day under Xavier was young and square-jawed and wore a visor over eyes that Harry was told would cut a hole through a wall if he ever took it off. Scott Summers believed in rules the way other men believed in God, and he had read whatever file the school kept on Logan, and he did not care for the conclusion. "Teaching 12-year-olds to break wrists," Scott said in the kitchen, not bothering to lower his voice the morning he'd finally had enough. "We train them to control their gifts so they never have to hurt anyone. He's training them to enjoy it. I'm training them to live through the day their gift quits on them," Logan said, not looking up from his coffee. "Which it will. Power fails. Bad guys cut the lights, jam the signal, dose you with something, and then all you got is your hands and whatever I put in them. You want to send a kid out into a world that hates him with nothing but good intentions, that's on you. I'd rather they came home. This is a school, not a war." "Everything's a war, bub. You just got a nicer building than most." Scott's jaw tightened. "You brought something to this house, I can feel it. Charles won't say what, but he's had the grounds watched for a week, and that's because of you." He pointed, the gesture stiff with the certainty of a man who had never once in his life been the most dangerous person in a room and didn't know how it felt. "If anything comes here for you and one of these kids gets hurt, that's on you, not Charles, you." It was the one thing in the speech that landed, because it was the one thing Logan agreed with, and the agreement cost him something Scott couldn't see. He set the coffee down. Yeah, Logan said quietly, it would be. And he got up and walked out, which Scott took for a victory, and Aurora, leaning in the doorway with her arms folded, did not. He came here for sanctuary, Scott, she said when Logan was gone. He came to a place that promises it to people the world wants dead, and the first thing we did was put him on trial in the kitchen. She pushed off the door frame. Whatever is coming, it isn't coming because of the man. It's coming because of the child he saved. Try to remember which one of them we are the next time you want to be right at someone. Harry, who had heard the whole of it from the back stair where Logan didn't know he was sitting, decided two things that morning. The first was that he liked Aurora. The second was that he would learn someday to take an eye apart the way Logan had been teaching him, just in case the man with the visor ever decided that being right at Logan was worth being right at the kid who came with him. Harry thrived in the wary, braced way that was the only kind of thriving he knew. He went to lesson. He was clever in the cold, quick manner of a child who learned early that paying attention was a survival skill, and the teachers liked him and the kids found him strange and interesting. Harry, who could talk to fire and call objects across a room, and who didn't flinch at anyone's gift no matter how monstrous it looked, because he'd grown up beside claws and a healing factor, and had recalibrated his idea of normal a long way past most people's. He made a friend, the fire girl Sarah, who decided that weird was a compliment and stuck to him, and another, the telekinetic boy John, who liked that Harry never once asked him to lift anything. He still slept badly some nights, and on those nights he came and found Logan wherever Logan was, and Logan never sent him back, and nobody at the school ever remarked on the fact that the most dangerous man any of them had ever met kept a folding cot in his room for a boy who couldn't always sleep. There was a younger boy at the school the others kept clear of, a small, silent kid of 6 named Marcus whose gift had no off switch. Things near him ate. Not people, the school had drilled that boundary into him until he could mostly hold it, but objects, a flower on a sill going brown and curling in an afternoon, the varnish lifting off a desk he leaned on too long, a leather ball gone cracked and gray in his hands. The other children weren't cruel about it, exactly. They just left a margin around him, a few feet of nobody, and a 6-year-old learns the shape of a margin fast and learns to call it his fault. Harry knew the shape of a margin from the inside. He'd spent 6 years being the few feet of nobody in a house on Privet Drive, so he sat in it. He took to eating beside Marcus in the long hall, close, inside the margin, deliberately, and when Marcus flinched and tried to slide his chair away so the apple in Harry's hand wouldn't spoil, Harry put the apple down between them and looked at it and asked it, the quiet way, to keep. And it kept. It sat there in the field of the younger boy's curse and stayed red and whole, because Harry had asked it to in a grammar that Marcus's gift had no answer for, and Marcus stared at the apple that should have rotted and didn't, and then he stared at Harry. How? Marcus whispered. Dunno, Harry said honestly. I just ask things. Sometimes they listen. He picked the apple up and took a bite to prove it was real and pushed the rest across to Marcus. Yours doesn't have an off switch yet, mine didn't either. It used to come out whenever I got scared and break everything. Logan taught me, you ask instead of grab and you get calm even when you're not, and it gets quieter. It takes ages, but it gets quieter. He shrugged. Sit by me, I don't spoil. It was not a large thing. But Marcus ate beside Harry every day after that, inside the margin that had stopped being a margin, and the other children, watching the strangest boy in the school adopt the loneliest one, adjusted their idea of where the few feet of nobody belonged, and the margin closed. Xavier saw it because Xavier saw most things, and he found Harry afterward in the library and did not make a speech about it, which Harry appreciated. He only said, that was well done. You gave him the one thing none of the adults here could. You gave him another child who wasn't afraid. The pale eyes considered the kid over steepled fingers. You know a great deal, Harry, about being the thing people leave a space around. I am sorry you had to learn it. I am glad it made you kind instead of cruel. It does not always. It did not for your uncle for a very long time, and look what one frightened child in a cupboard undid in him. He wheeled back from the table. Go on, your friend's waiting. And Harry, whatever you may come to hear in the weeks ahead about danger at our gates, you're wanted here, both of you. That is not a thing this house says lightly, and it is not a thing it takes back. The danger room learned him slowly, the way Xavier had promised. Control came the way Logan had always told him it would, not by grabbing but by asking, not by force but by calm. And the great cold metal room threw stone and fire, and falling weight at an 8-year-old boy who answered it more steadily every week, until the day he held a collapsing ceiling off his own head for a 10 count without the wild grenade charge spiking once, just a steady blue hum and the kids breathing slow and even underneath it. He trained with the other 2 more often than alone, once Xavier judged it safe, and the 3 of them together taught the great cold room things it had not been built to expect. Sarah threw fire and Harry turned it in the air, bending a wall of flame around a corner it had no business turning, dousing it to blue and calling it home to his palm, while John lifted the rubble out of their path with a flick of his mind. The room would set them a problem, a collapse, a flood, a wall of moving blades, and the mutants would answer it with the brute clean force of their gifts, and then Harry would answer it sideways, asking the water to part or the blades to still or the broken beam to hold one more second, and the answers fit together at strange angles, mutant force and asked for magic, two grammars solving the same sentence. It shouldn't work, John said once, flat on his back in the cooling room after a run, grinning at the ceiling. Charles says your thing and our thing come from different worlds, they shouldn't even touch. Logan says most things that shouldn't work just need somebody stubborn enough, Harry said. Logan says that about everything. Logan's right about everything, Harry said. Ask him. And Sarah laughed so hard she lit her own sleeve and had to put it out. And for a moment the three of them were just children who had been given the rarest thing the world had to offer their kind, which was a room where their strangeness was the point and not the problem. And somewhere up in the control booth a man who had spent a century alone watched them through the glass and did not look away. He told himself he was watching for threats, marking the exits as a sentry watches a perimeter, and that was even half true, and the other half he kept where he kept the broken watch, in a place he did not open in front of anyone. Xavier watched that from the control booth with Logan beside him and said nothing, and Logan said nothing, and the two of them stood there in a silence that held more than either would have put into words. He is extraordinary, Xavier said at last when the run had ended and him was down on the floor grinning his startled, bright grin at Sarah, who'd come to watch. You know that, you have always known it. I want you to understand that I mean it as a warning as much as a wonder. I know what it means, Logan said. Then you know we should talk about the thing you have not said since you arrived. Xavier did not look at him. He watched the children through the glass. You did not bring him to me only for teaching, Logan. You brought him behind walls. You count my exits every day. You sleep across a door. A man does not do those things to keep a child safe from the ordinary world. So who is hunting you? Logan was quiet long enough that a lesser man would have filled it. Xavier didn't. He had infinite patience, the kind that came of hearing the whole loud interior of the world all day. Silence was a thing he treasured and would wait inside forever. Two things, Logan said finally. Maybe the same thing. There's a program. Weapon X, they're the ones put the metal in me, made me what I am. I got loose years back, but a thing like that, it don't ever really close the file. Somebody from it, or somebody who bought what's left of it, put my description down every wire in the world about a year ago. Hard men in Scotland came up my glen looking for the money on it. That's why we ran. That's why we're here. He watched the kids through the glass, Sarah lighting a flame for Harry to turn blue, the two of them laughing at it. That's the program. The other thing's worse. Tell me the other thing. His name's Victor Creed, goes by Sabretooth. Logan said the name flat, the way you'd name a weather that had killed people you knew. He's like me. Built the same, near enough, the long life, the heal, the senses. Claws though his are his own, not the metal. We came up together, him and me, a long time back before the program after it. The timeline's a mess in my head and that's their doing too. He's the closest thing I got to a brother and the thing I'd kill quickest if I could, and he feels the same about me and he's been circling my whole life. He likes to take the things I care about. It's a game to him. It's the only game he's got. Logan turned from the glass and looked at Xavier directly. I spent 100 years mackin'. Sure I didn't care about anything, Charles. You know why? Not 'cause I'm cold, 'cause of him. 'Cause everything I ever let myself want, he found, and he took it slow where I could watch, so I stopped wantin', and it worked. For a real long time it worked. Xavier's pale eyes moved just once to Harry beyond the glass. And now you want something, he said quietly. And now I want something. Logan's voice didn't change, which was how Xavier knew the size of it. And he's gonna feel it. He always feels it. A man like me gone soft over a kid, that's blood in the water to him. He'll come, not for the program's money, for the look on my face when he gets close to the kid. That's worth more to Victor than any payday. So yeah, Chuck, I count your exits every day. And I'll keep counting until one of us is in the ground, and the way we're built, that could be a while. Xavier was silent for a moment, and when he spoke there was something in his unhurried voice that had not been there before, a gravity, the tone of a man laying his own card on the table because the stakes had earned it. Then I must tell you what I have not said either, Xavier said. 3 nights ago in Cerebro, at the far edge of the machine's reach, I touched a mind I did not recognize and could not hold. Cold, patient, built wrong the way you describe him, a predator's mind running under a thin coat of a man's. It was not searching the way I search, it was hunting. It had a scent, Logan, if a mind can be said to have one, and the scent it was following, Xavier paused, led here toward this house. I lost it before I could fix its place. I told myself it was a stray impression, the kind the machine throws up at its limits. I told myself that because the alternative was telling you, and I did not yet know you well enough again to know how you would take it. His hands tightened on the arms of the chair. I should have told you that night. He is closer than either of us wished to believe. The cold that went through Logan then was not fear, exactly. Fear was a thing that happened to men who could be hurt, and Logan, in the ordinary sense, could not. It was the older feeling underneath fear, the one the animal in him had carried since before he had words, the pre-knowledge that the thing you'd been dreading had stopped being a someday and become a soon. He looked through the glass at Harry laughing over a blue flame, the cub he'd sworn would have to be reached through him, and the math he'd been running quietly for 2 years finished itself in his head and came out the way he'd always known it would. How long? Logan said. I don't know. Then we stopped waitin' to find out. Logan was already moving toward the door, the slow ease gone out of him, every motion economical now. The drifter burned off and the weapon stood up in its place. I want the ground swept. I want to know every way onto this property a man could come, and I want him watched. I want the kid where I can reach him in under a minute, day or night. And Charles, he stopped at the door. When he comes, and he's gonna come, you keep your people out of it. All of 'em. Victor's mine. He's been mine for 100 years. The only thing I won't survive is one of these kids gettin' in the way of something that was always meant for me. And Harry, Xavier asked. He will not stay out of it. You have raised him to run toward you, not away. I have seen it. Whatever comes through that gate, the kid will put himself between it and you the instant he thinks you need him to. Logan stood in the doorway with that because it was true, and it was the one variable in the whole grim calculation that he could not control and could not bear. Yeah, he said, I know, that's the part that scares me. It was the only time Charles Xavier ever heard Logan use the word about himself, and he had the grace not to remark on it. That night Logan walked the grounds alone in the falling snow, the whole long perimeter of the place, reading the dark with senses that had kept him alive across a century. The kids were asleep behind him in the warm-lit house. Harry was in their room, down soft and deep as he slept now, trusting the old wolf to keep the watch. Logan went to the far north wall where the property met the wild tree line, and he stood there a long time, breathing the cold, clean, snow-scented air, and he told himself there was nothing. Then the wind shifted, the way it had shifted on a country road in England 2 years and a lifetime ago, and brought him something off the dark trees that did not belong in any winter wood. Old blood and cold patience and a rank animal musk he would have known in his sleep, in his grave at the bottom of the sea. It was faint, it was miles off maybe, carried thin on the changing wind. It was unmistakable, and it was getting closer, and it was smiling. Logan knew it was smiling the way you know the sun is up. He stood at the north wall in the snow with the sleeping house at his back and let one set of claws slide out into the dark, just to feel them, just to remember, and he spoke to the tree line in a voice too low for anything human to hear. Yeah, Logan said, I smell you too. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, Old Wolves. For 9 days after Logan smelled him on the wind, Victor Creed did nothing, and the nothing was the worst part. Logan knew the game. He'd played the other side of it across more years than he could count. You let the prey feel you out there. You let them lose sleep. You let a man who can't be killed in the ordinary way learn that there are still things that can be taken from him, and you let him lie awake doing the arithmetic, and you wait until the waiting has done half your work, and then you come. Creed had patience the way Xavier had patience, except where Xavier's was a still lake, Creed's was a cat at a mouse hole, and the difference was everything. So Logan changed the school's rhythm and didn't apologize for it. The grounds got walked, dawn and dusk, by people Logan trusted to do it right. The little ones stayed close to the house. Harry stayed closer to Logan than he had since the truck, not because Logan ordered it, though he had, but because the kid could feel the change in the man the way you feel the pressure drop before weather, and he matched it without being told. He cleaned his knife more. He ran his drills without being asked. At night he slept in the cot in Logan's room and didn't pretend it was about bad dreams. He's not gonna come at the house first, Logan told him the 4th night, both of them awake in the dark. That's not his way. He'll cut something off the edges first, test the fences, make me come to him, so if anything happens away from the house, anything, you don't run to it. You run to Charles, you hear me, not to me, to Charles. He can hide you in a way I can't. You always say run toward you. I know what I always say. Logan's voice was rough. This is the one time I'm telling you the opposite, and I need you to remember it when it counts, because when it counts you won't want to. Victor's whole plan is you running toward me. That's the trap. The trap is you. You understand. I understand, Harry said. He didn't mean it, and they both knew he didn't, and there was nothing either of them could do about that, because Logan had spent 2 years building a boy who ran toward the people he loved, and you don't get to keep the parts of what you built that are convenient and return the rest. Creed killed the dog on the 9th day. It belonged to a farm a half-mile beyond the north wall, an old collie the children sometimes saw working sheep along the property line, and Logan found it at first light hung in the low branches of the boundary oak, arranged, deliberate, a message written in a language only Logan and one other living thing still spoke. He cut it down himself before any of the kids could see it and buried it in the cold ground and stood over the grave with the snow coming down and read everything Creed had meant him to read in it. I'm here. I can reach what you love. I did this where you'd find it and they wouldn't. This is between us, Jimmy, same as always. Come and play. He went back to the house and found Xavier in his study and shut the door. It's started, Logan said. He's marking the ground. Couple days, maybe less, he'll make his move. He stood with his back to the door, every line of him gone quiet and economical. I need you to do something for me, Charles, and you're not gonna like it, and I need you to do it anyway. If it goes bad, if he gets past me, I need you to take the kid. Not hide him in a room, take him. Cerebro, your gift, whatever it is you do, I need you to be able to put your hand on his mind and pull him out of wherever he is and into somewhere Victor can't follow. Can you do that? Xavier was quiet a moment. I can reach him, yes, anywhere within a great distance. But Logan, to pull a frightened child out of his own terror by force, to override his will even to save him, it is the nearest thing to what was done to you that I am capable of. I have sworn never to do it. You are asking me to break the one vow I have never broken. I'm asking you to break it for him, Logan said. Not for the program, not for power, for one kid one time if it's the only thing between him and Victor Creed, that's the ask. He held the old man's eyes. I wouldn't ask it light. You know what I think of what they did to my head, but I'd let you do worse than that to me right now if it kept that boy off Victor's hook, so can you do it? If it comes to that, Xavier said, very low, and God forbid that it does. Yes, I will reach him, I will pull him out, and I will carry the weight of having done it for the rest of my life, and so, I think, will you. Yeah, Logan said. Welcome to my whole life. You get used to the weight, mostly. Creed made his move at dusk 2 days later, and he made it the way Logan had known he would, by splitting them. It came as a fire in the equipment barn at the southeast corner of the grounds, far from the house, sudden and hot and meant to be seen. Every reflex Logan had ever been given told him to go to it, and he knew the instant he smelled the accelerant on the wind that going to it was exactly the point, that the fire was a hand waving him east while the real thing came from somewhere else. He grabbed Harry by the shoulders in the front hall where the kids were already crowding to the windows. Charles, now, Logan said. Take him, but Xavier's voice came back into all their heads at once, tight, strained, a thing Harry had never heard from the still lake of the man. They're jamming me. There is a device on the grounds, a dampening field. I cannot reach Cerebro. I cannot reach anyone past the walls. Logan, they came prepared for me specifically. The man who came prepared for me did not come for a boy he could simply shoot, so the program had learned, of course it had. They'd built Logan, they knew what walked beside him now was a telepath, and they'd brought the thing that turned a telepath off, which told him this was not a kidnapping crew but a Weapon X strike, surgical funded, and the dog they'd sent to run it was the one dog on Earth that hated Logan enough to do it for free. New plan, Logan said, low and fast, crouching to Harry's eye level while the fire glowed orange in the east windows and the older kids ran for their stations. Aurora's gonna take you down to the lower levels behind the blast doors. Steel, no windows, one way in and I'll be standin' in it. You go with her, you stay behind the doors, and whatever you hear up here, you do not open them. Promise me, say it. I promise, Harry said. He even meant it that time. It still wasn't going to be enough, and Logan, looking into the green eyes, knew it wasn't, and pulled the kid in against him hard for 1 second, his whole scarred arm around the small back, the closest the old wolf came to saying the thing he never said, and then he let go and stood up, and the claws came out of both hands with a sound like a door to somewhere bad opening. Go, he said, and to Aurora, doors, now, don't let go of his hand. Then Logan went out into the snow to meet his brother. Creed was waiting for him on the white lawn between the burning barn and the dark woods, and he had not changed in the years since Logan had last tried to kill him. He was huge, a head taller than Logan, all heavy muscle under a coat gone ragged, his nails long and yellow and his teeth worse, his eyes the flat amber of a thing that had stopped being a man so long ago it had forgotten it ever was one. He stood easy in the falling snow with his hands loose and his head tipped, and when he saw Logan come down the steps with the claws out he smiled wide enough to show all of it. There he is. Creed's voice was a low gravel scrape, almost fond. There's my little brother, look at you, Jimmy. Walkin' out of a schoolhouse, he laughed, an ugly delighted sound. You went and got yourself a litter after all this time, after everything I taught you about wantin' things. He spread his arms wide, taking in the burning barn, the dark grounds, the lit-up house behind Logan. You made it so easy. You used to be a ghost, couldn't find you for years at a stretch, and then you go and let yourself love something, and suddenly you got an address, you got a routine, you got something to lose. His amber eyes glittered. You got a boy. You came a long way to die in the snow, Victor, Logan said. I came a long way to watch your face, Creed said. The money's nice. Brennan pays good and he wants you on a table again, and he wants the green-eyed thing you've been raising even more. Can't read it, can't classify it, drives the little man crazy. But that's not why I'm here, and you know it. He started to circle, slow, his bare feet leaving no marks in the snow because he set them so light. A creature 500 pounds of weight could not afford to telegraph. I'm here for the face you're gonna make. I've been savin' it up 100 years, that face, the one you made the other times when I took the things you loved. I forgot how good it tastes, and this time it's a kid, Jimmy. This time it's gonna be the best one yet. Logan didn't circle with him. He stood still in the center of the lawn, the claws down at his sides, snow gathering on his shoulders. The calm Harry had been taught to read laid over a thing that had no calm in it at all. You talk a lot more than you used to, Logan said. Brennan let you off the leash too long. You're bored, that's your tell, Victor. You always did run your mouth right before you lost. Creed stopped smiling, and then he came. There is no clean way to describe two men fighting who cannot die. It is not like other fights which end when a body fails. Their bodies did not fail. Creed crossed the lawn in 3 strides faster than the snow could fall and hit Logan like a car, and they went down together in a tangle of claws and went through the surface of the world that ordinary fights live on and into the older one underneath, where it was only weight and speed and the will to do harm, and harm done and instantly undone. Logan took the first set of claws across the chest and felt the cold of the night reach into the wound, and felt it close behind the blade as Creed dragged it free, the heel already racing the cut, a sensation he'd lived with so long it was just the texture of being alive. He gave it back doubled, the adamantium going where Creed's bone claws couldn't, into the meat of the bigger man's shoulder levering, and Creed roared and rolled, and they came apart and up onto their feet in the snow, both of them already mending, both of them grinning the same grin, because the worst truth of Logan's whole life was that there was a part of him that had missed this, the only dance partner who'd never break. There it is, Creed panted, delighted, blood sheeting down his arm and slowing as it went. There's my brother, not the school teacher, him, the animal. You can dress him up in a litter and a house with a name, but he's still in there, ain't he, Jimmy? He's always gonna be in there, and you know how I know. He flicked blood off his claws. 'Cause the second I bleed your kid, that's who's comin' out, not the man, him. Leave the kid out of your mouth, Logan said and went at him. He fought the way he'd taught Harry to fight, which was the way he'd learned in 100 years of wars, not angry, calm, every motion paid for, no wind up, no waste. Creed fought the other way, the way of a thing that had never once feared a consequence, huge and savage and joyful, and the snow churned to mud and red beneath them as they tore at each other on the lawn of a school for gifted children, 2 immortal animals settling a debt older than the country they stood in. Logan opened Creed's belly and Creed closed it. Creed broke Logan's arm at the elbow, and the adamantium would not let it stay broken, and Logan set it against his own knee with a grunt and kept coming. They were, in that narrow and terrible sense, perfectly matched, and a fight between perfectly matched immortals does not get one on damage. It gets one, Logan knew, on what the other one wants, and Victor Creed wanted the face, wanted Harry. And so every part of him that wasn't busy hurting Logan strained toward the house, toward the lower levels, toward the green-eyed thing he'd been paid and pleased to take, and that was the crack in him. The place his calm wasn't, and Logan, bleeding and mending in the red snow, kept his own eyes off the house with everything he had, because the one thing he could not do was show Victor where to look. Behind the blast doors, 3 floors down, Harry stood in the cold steel corridor with Aurora's hand around his, and listened to the building try to keep him safe. He had done what he was told. He had gone down with Aurora through the lower levels, past the danger room, to the deepest sealed corridor where the walls were a foot of layered steel and there was one way in, and Sarah and John had come too because they'd refused to be sent to the children's wing, and Aurora had stopped arguing with them because there was no time. The blast door had come down behind them, a slab thicker than a man, and for a few minutes the only sounds were their own breathing and the far muffled thunder of whatever was happening above. Then something hit the blast door from the other side, and the foot of steel rang like a struck bell, and a thin line of white light appeared along its top edge where no light should be able to get in. "They have a cutter," Aurora said, very calm, and put the children behind her. The air in the sealed corridor stirred, charged, the small storm she could still call even underground, even with the program's dampener pressing on the psionic parts of the world. The lightning was hers, written in every cell, and no machine of theirs had been built to take it. "Stay behind me, all 3. Harry, you remember what your uncle said. Whatever happens, you do not go up those stairs." The blast door came apart along the white line and fell inward in two grinding halves, and the men came through. There were 6 of them, and they were not like the men in the Scottish glen. They moved like one thing, low and fast and silent, matte armor and goggles and weapons that hummed instead of fired, and they fanned into the corridor with the awful economy of people who had practiced exactly this. Behind them, unhurried, came a 7th, a narrow gray man in a long coat with a tablet in his hands and no weapon at all, his eyes already past Aurora, already on the green-eyed boy at the back, lighting with the cold pleasure of a man whose specimen has finally been brought to the lab. "The weather which," the gray man said, mild, reading his tablet. "Aurora Munro, you're not the asset. Step aside and you won't be billed for." He looked up and his gaze settled on Harry and he smiled the way a scalpel smiles. "Hello, you've caused me a great deal of trouble for something I can't even name yet. Brennan, we're going to get to know each other very well." Aurora answered him with the storm. The lightning she threw in that steel corridor was the most beautiful and terrible thing Harry had ever seen, white and total, and 2 of the armored men were simply not standing where they had been standing, and the air screamed and the lights blew out, and for 3 seconds Aurora Munro held 7 men at bay, underground with nothing but the sky she carried inside her. Then one of them got a device off his belt and threw it, and it burst against the wall in a pulse of something that wasn't light, and Aurora cried out and went to her knees with her hands at her temples, the storm guttering out of her, and Harry understood that they had come prepared for her too, for all of it, that Brennan was a man who came prepared. John lifted 3 of them off their feet with his mind and slammed them into the ceiling. Sarah lit the corridor up with fire that drove the others back. They were children, gifted and brave, and 12 years old, and they bought 4 more seconds, and then the gas came, heavy and white and rolling along the floor, and John's eyes rolled up and he dropped, and Sarah's fire went out as she coughed and folded, and Aurora was already down, and that left one small figure standing at the back of a gas-filled steel corridor between Brennan's men and the stairs. Harry did not run up the stairs. He had promised, and some part of him even then held the promise. But he did not step aside either. A wild thing was coming up in him, the old grenade with the pin out, the byre door and the cracked window and the gunman on the ceiling, all of it rising at once with his friends down in the gas and a gray man walking toward him through the smoke. And Harry reached down into the white roar of it the way Logan and Xavier had spent 2 years teaching him to, and for one held breath he was the calm at the center of his own storm, the still pond. And he looked at the 6 armored men and the gray smiling man, and he did not ask politely. He took the air. It was the largest thing he had ever done, larger than the byre, larger than anything the danger room had ever pulled from him, and it did not feel like grabbing and it did not feel like asking. It felt like the world had been waiting his whole life for him to simply tell it what he needed and mean it all the way down. The pressure in the sealed corridor dropped like a dynamited dam. The gas tore away from his friends and funneled toward him and past him and gone. The armored men left the floor, all of them at once, snatched up and flung back through the broken blast door into the dark of the corridor beyond, weapons ringing off steel, and the blue-white humming charge filled the underground hall so bright that the gray man Brennan flung an arm across his eyes and shouted something into the radio at his throat. And one of the men, going backward through the air with everything else, fired the weapon in his hands on the way out, not aimed, just loosed, a single round meant for nothing, and it went where unaimed rounds go, which is wherever there is a child standing brave and lit up in the dark, and it caught Harry high on the left side, below the shoulder, and spun him into the steel wall. And he slid down it into a sitting heap with the breath knocked out of him and a heat opening up under his collarbone that he didn't understand yet, and then understood when he put his hand to it and brought it away black-red in the failing light. Blood, his blood. A lot of it more than a knife in a kitchen, pumping in time with something, soaking the new dark warmth across his chest and into the floor. "Oh," Harry said, surprised, to no one, the charge guttering out of the air around him as the strength ran out of him with the red. "Oh, that's bad." On the lawn, 3 floors up, in the red snow, Logan smelled it. It came up through the broken ground and the burning barn and the cold and Victor Creed's rank musk and all the other noise of the night. The one scent his whole body had been built and trained and broken and remade to find. The scent that had pulled him off a country road 2 years ago and changed the entire shape of his long life. Harry's blood, not a scrape, not a kitchen accident. The deep arterial reek of a child bleeding out, and it was coming from under the house, from behind the doors that were supposed to hold. Something happened to Logan then that had not happened in a long time, that he had spent decades and a great deal of effort learning to keep on its chain, and that he did not even try to hold now. Creed saw it happen. He had been waiting 100 years to see it, the face, the change, the man burning off and the animal standing up in the snow, and he got exactly what he'd come for, and the getting of it was the last good moment of his night. Because the thing that turned to look at him out of Logan's eyes was not interested in the dance anymore. It was not matched with him anymore. It was not going to trade cuts in the snow until one of them got bored. It had one purpose now, narrowed to a single white point, and the purpose was to get through Victor Creed and everything else in this world to reach a bleeding boy, and it did not care what it cost. Logan hit him, and this time there was nothing calm in it, and that was somehow worse than calm. He drove Creed off his feet and into the boundary oak hard enough to crack the trunk, and the claws went into Creed's shoulders and pinned him there against the wood, and Logan put his face an inch from his brother's and spoke in a voice that had gravel and 100 years and the absolute end of patience in it. "You're gonna remember this," Logan said. "Long as we both got left, you came to my house, you bled my kid. And I'm not gonna kill you tonight because killin' you would take too long and he doesn't have it, but I want you to carry this, Victor. The next time, and there's gonna be a next time, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm gonna end you. No game, no dance, just over. You understand me, brother?" And Creed, pinned and bleeding against the oak with the thing he'd wanted to see finally looking back at him, did something he had not planned to do. He stopped smiling, because he had hunted Logan across a century and he had never once in all that time seen the man mean a thing as he meant this, and even a creature like Victor Creed knows the difference between a threat and a promise. "Go on then," Creed rasped. "Go to your litter, we both know you're gonna." He bared the awful teeth one more time, but it was thinner now, the joy gone shallow. "Run, Jimmy, run to him. I'll be seeing you both real soon." Logan tore the claws free and left him bleeding against the tree and ran for the house, and behind him Creed slid down the trunk into the snow and did not follow, because even he knew there was nothing to be gained from getting between that and the thing it loved. The lower levels were chaos and smoke and the smell of ozone and blood. Logan came down the stairs faster than the building was meant to be traveled, through the wreck of the blast door, past Brennan's armored men who were dragging themselves up off the floor where Harry had thrown them. And Logan went through them on the way without slowing, the claws doing economical terrible work in the dark. And the men who could still move decided that the asset was no longer worth the cost and went up and out into the night with their wounded, and the gray man Brennan went with them, walking backward. His tablet still in his hands, his cold eyes fixed on the kid on the floor with an expression that was not fear and not mercy but something worse, the look of a scientist filing away a result. "Remarkable," Brennan said to no one to the dark as Logan reached the child. "Simply remarkable. We'll be in touch." And then the program was gone up the stairs and into the snow, and the dampening field went with them, and Xavier's voice crashed back into all their heads at once, frantic, and the storm woke in Aurora where she lay, and the lights guttered back on, and Logan was on his knees in his cub's blood with his hands pressed over the hole in the small chest and the heat going out of him under his palms. "No," Logan said. "No, number, look at me, Harry. Look at me, cub, eyes open, that's an order, you don't get to close 'em. Charles, Charles. I need Hank, I need him now, the kid's hit, he's hit bad. I can see you," Harry said. His voice came thin and far away and almost calm, the calm Logan had taught him, the worst possible time for it to finally take. His hand came up and found Logan's wrist where the claws had gone back in and held it, the old grip, the fistful of shirt from the truck, except his fingers had no strength left in them. "I didn't go up the stairs, I kept the promise, I didn't run to you." "I know you didn't," Logan's voice broke on it, the first time in the kids hearing it had ever broken on anything. "I know you did good, you did so good, now you gotta do one more thing for me, you gotta hold on, you hear? You hold on the way I taught you, cold's just information, pain's just information, it's tellin' you you're still here, you stay right here with me. "I'm tired, Logan, I know, stay anyway, cub, please." And the man who never said please said it again, and again, his hands red to the wrist holding the life inside a body too small to spare any, until Hank McCoy came down the smoking stairs 3 at a time with his bag in his blue hands and his impossible gentleness, and put those hands over Logan's and said, low and steady, "I have him, my friend. Let me in, I have him," and Logan let him in, and the longest night of a very long life began. The round had clipped the big vessel under the collarbone and missed the lung by the width of a promise. Hank worked on him through the night in the med bay 2 floors down, and Logan stood against the wall the whole time where he could see and not be in the way, his shirt stiff with Harry's blood drying on it, refusing to change it, refusing to sit, a stone with eyes that did not once leave the small body on the table. This was the thing he had spent 100 years avoiding, and now he understood, standing in it, exactly why he'd avoided it. Logan could not be hurt this way. A bullet under his own collarbone would have closed before the echo died. He had taken 100 of them and walked off every one. He had built a whole long life on the back of that fact, on being the one thing the world couldn't break, and the price of it, the price he'd never let himself feel until tonight, was that he could not give 1 inch of it away. Not a drop. The blood mending itself in his own veins could do nothing for the blood leaving the kids. He was the most unkillable thing in 3 counties, and he was completely helpless. And the helplessness was a country he had never set foot in before, and he hated it more than he had ever hated anything. More than the program, more than Creed, more than the cage. Hank closed the vessel and gave Harry back the blood he'd lost out of the school's own stores and stitched the small chest, and at 4 a.m. he peeled off his gloves and turned to the stone against the wall and said the only words Logan had been able to hear since dusk. "He's going to live," Hank said. "He's strong, Logan. Stronger than a child his size has any right to be." Someone taught him how to hold on. He put one enormous blue hand on Logan's shoulder, gentle as anything. "He's going to live. You can sit down now." Logan sat down. He did it all at once, the strings cut into the chair beside the bed, and he took the kid's slack hand in both of his red ones and put his forehead down on it and stayed like that a long time, and Hank McCoy found a reason to be on the other side of the room, and said nothing about it then or ever. Harry woke a little after dawn. The light was gray in the high windows, and there was a weight on his hand, and he turned his head, which cost more than it should have, and found Logan there, asleep at last in the chair, gray-faced and still in his bloody shirt, holding on. "Logan," Harry whispered. The man was awake instantly, as he always was. His eyes went over the kid, the quick total inventory, and found him alive. "Hey," Logan said. His voice was wrecked. "There you are. Did we win?" Logan let out a breath that was half a laugh and half something, with no name. "Yeah, kid, we won. You threw a whole strike team through a steel door. Aurora's fine. John and Sarah are fine. They're already bragging about it down the hall. Hank put you back together. He didn't mention Creed. There would be time for Creed. You won. You scared the hell out of the lot of us, but you won." Harry was quiet a moment, gathering the strength to say a thing. "I felt you come," he said. "Down the stairs. I felt the whole building feel you come." His thin fingers tightened a fraction in Logan's grip. "I knew you would. Even when you told me not to run to you, I knew you'd run to me." And there it was, the thing Logan had been most afraid of and most certain of in equal measure. Harry he had built to run toward the people he loved, lying in a med bay with a hole in his chest, certain to his bones that Logan would always come. It was the most dangerous thing about him. It was the truest thing about both of them. Logan looked at the small alive face and gave up finally and completely on the long century-old project of not having anything the world could take. "Yeah," he said. "I ran to you. I'm always gonna run to you. Get used to it." They stayed in that room 3 days, and the school orbited it. Xavier came and sat and did not make speeches. Aurora came with a headache that would have felled an ox, and a fury at Brennan she kept off her face for Harry's sake. Sarah brought a flame to turn blue, and John brought every paperback in the school, and Marcus, the little one who spoiled things, came and sat inside the margin and held the edge of the blanket and didn't spoil it, and Harry, propped on pillows and pale and stitched, held court like a wounded young king who could not quite believe the kingdom had come to him. Logan stayed through all of it at the edge of the room where he could see the door and the kid both, and when the visitors had gone each evening he stayed longer, and the school learned to leave a plate outside the med bay door, because the old wolf would not go down to the hall to eat while the cub still slept stitched and pale, and nobody remarked on that either. On the second day, when the kid was strong enough to be bored, which Hank said was the best sign there was, Harry asked about the man on the lawn. "He called you Jimmy," Harry said. He was propped on the pillows, working his way through a bowl of soup he'd insisted on holding himself. "Through the floors, I heard bits of it. He said he was your brother." Logan didn't duck it. He made him a rule out of the truth, and he wasn't going to start spending it now of all times. "His name's Victor, Sabertooth mostly these days, and yeah, brother's the closest word, even if the blood part's a long story I don't all the way remember." He sat back in the chair. "We're the same kind of thing, him and me, came up together a long way back. Same long life, same heel, same senses, same wars." There was a stretch where he was the only one in the whole world who understood what it was to be what I am, and that's a bond, kid, whether you want it or not. You spend 100 years next to the one other creature who can't die beside you. It ties you to him in a way that doesn't come undone. "But he's bad," Harry said, not a question. He'd seen the man's eyes. "He's bad," Logan agreed. "Somewhere back there he decided that Bane, what we are means you don't owe the world anything, and I decided the opposite, and that's the whole difference between us, and it's everything. Same gifts, same curse. One of us spent it talking things. The other one," he looked at the stitched boy in the bed, "spent a real long time talking nothing, and then took in a kid out of a cupboard, and here we are." He leaned forward and tapped the rim of the soup bowl. "You want to know the thing that scares Victor? Not my claws. He's got his own. What scares him is you. A thing like us that finally wanted something and went and got it and kept it. He can't do that, doesn't know how, so he hunts the one of us who learned because it's the one thing he was never brave enough to try." Harry thought about that, the slow, careful way he thought about everything, turning it for the catch. Is that why he wants to take me, he said, to prove he was right not to want things. Logan looked at Harry for a long moment, and there was something in his scarred face that didn't have a name. You're too smart for 8, Logan said finally. Eat your soup. On the third night, when the kid was sleeping properly at last, Logan stood at the high window with Xavier and watched the dark grounds where men had bled 3 days before, and said the thing he'd been turning over the whole time. Hidden doesn't work, Logan said. I've been telling myself for 2 years if I kept us small and quiet, it'd pass. It doesn't pass. It found us in a glen. It found us behind your walls. It'll find us in the next place and the place after. Brennan's not gonna stop. He's got the kid's signature now, whatever that means to him, and Victor's not gonna stop because Victor doesn't know how. So I'm done hidden. He watched the snow. I gotta go at this from the other end. I gotta find what's left of the program and put it down. I gotta deal with Victor for good, the way I promised him in the snow. And I can't do either of those with the kid on my back, and I can't do either of them if he's not safe while I'm gone. He is safe here, Xavier said. Safer now than before. We were caught unready once. We will not be caught so again. Hank is already building against the dampener, and I am no longer treating the thing at my gates as a stray impression. He was quiet a moment. But that is not the whole of what troubles you tonight. Say the rest. Logan was silent for a while. He's 8, he said finally. He near died on a steel floor at 8 years old in a war that's mine, not his. He should be reading his paperbacks and turning cats blue and getting in trouble for normal things. Instead, he's learning to bleed for the people he loves. His jaw worked. I did that. I made him into something that runs toward the fire. And tonight that almost cost him everything. And the worst part, Charles, the part I can't get out of my head, is that I'd do it again. I'd build him the exact same way. Because a kid who runs toward the people he loves is a kid who has people he loves, and 3 years ago he had nobody, and a cupboard, and a broken arm. I'd rather he be brave and bleeding than safe and alone. And I don't know if that makes me a good father or the worst thing that ever happened to him. Xavier looked at the man for a long moment, and when he spoke his unhurried voice was very gentle. It makes you his father, he said. That is the whole of the answer, and it is the only answer any of us ever get. We build them as best we can out of what we are, and what we are is never clean, and we love them too much to do it perfectly, and then we stand at windows in the dark and wonder if we have ruined them or saved them, and the truth is always both, and the wondering never stops. You are not the worst thing that happened to that boy, Logan. You are the best. You are also the reason the worst things now know his name. Both are true. You will carry both. That is fatherhood. I am sorry no one warned you. No one is ever warned. Down the corridor in a bed too big for him, a boy who had once lived in a cupboard slept the deep, clean sleep of the mending, guarded by the most dangerous man in the world in a school full of the world's strange children, while 3 counties away a gray man typed a single green-eyed line into a file that would not close, and somewhere in the winter woods a creature with amber eyes licked the last of a wound shut and grinned into the dark and began, with all the patience of a thing that cannot die, to wait. Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. The Owl and the Wolf. 3 years went by the way good years do, which is to say quietly and all at once. Harry turned 11 in the summer of 1991. On the birthday he and Logan had picked off a calendar in a Highland kitchen a lifetime ago, and the kid who blew out the candles bore only a passing resemblance to the one who'd been carried out of a cupboard in a stranger's coat. He had Logan's economy of movement now, the way of crossing a room that wasted nothing and watched everything. He had the lean, hard frame of a kid who trained every dawn and the scar under his collarbone that he wore without comment, a white pucker that matched in its way the white lines on the backs of Logan's hands. He could call a thrown knife back to his palm before it landed, hold a collapsing wall off 3 people for a slow count of 30, and turn any fire in the room a deep cold blue, which he still did sometimes to make Marcus laugh. He was wry and he was quick, and he was loyal the way a thing is loyal that remembers being alone. He had Logan's terse humor filed down to an 11-year-old's edge, and he used it on everyone, including the most dangerous people in the building, who all let him, because Harry, who'd thrown a strike team through a steel door, had earned a little lip. "You're slow this morning," he told Logan, dawn on the east lawn, the two of them circling on the worn grass while the sky went pink behind the trees. "I'm passin' myself," Logan said, "account of your age. Don't want to put an old man's hip out on a kid. You're 100 and something, and I'll still put you on your back. Quit talkin', show me." Harry showed him. He was good now, genuinely good, fast and low and impossible to set hands on, and he got behind Logan twice before Logan caught him the 3rd time and dumped him gentle into the dew-wet grass and stood over him with the not-quite smile that was the warmest thing in the man's whole repertoire. "Better," Logan said. "You're thinkin' 2 moves ahead instead of 1. Keep that up and in a year or two you won't need the magic to handle most things, and that matters, kid, because magic fails, same as a mutant's gift fails, same as everything fails, and when it does, all you got is what I put in your hands. He hauled the kid up. Go eat, whole day ahead. The school had become, without anyone deciding it out loud, the thing Logan had told him a home was, a place you'd come back to with the door wide open. Harry had a life inside it now, a real one, the kind he'd once thought was a thing that happened to other children on television. He had lessons he was good at and one he was bad at, and friends who were not afraid of him, and a younger kid who followed him everywhere and had stopped spoiling things he loved. Sarah could light a stadium now and had stopped setting her own sleeves on fire, mostly. John could lift a car and had learned from Logan to throw a punch in case he ever met something he couldn't lift. The three of them ran the grounds at dusk and got in the ordinary kind of trouble, and Aurora pretended not to know who had turned the swimming pool the color of the Caribbean, and Xavier pretended to believe her. And through all of it there was the old wolf at the edges, never quite part of the furniture, 6 every morning on the lawn, a folding cot still made up in his room though Harry needed it less now, a man who had built a family out of pure refusal and would have walked into the sun before he called it that. Harry called it that privately in the place where he kept the truest things. He had a family. It had claws and white hair and a wheelchair and a temper and a dozen strange gifted children in it, and it was the most heavily armed family in the Western Hemisphere, and it was his. That was the morning the first owl came. It came in low over the east lawn out of the pink sky, a tawny owl in broad daylight, which owls do not do, and it dropped a heavy cream envelope at Harry's feet with the unbothered precision of a postman who'd done the route 1,000 times, and then it banked and was gone over the trees before either of them had finished being surprised. The envelope sat in the wet grass. It was addressed in green ink, and the address was not a thing any postal service on Earth should have known. Mr. H. Potter, the East Lawn, Xavier's Institute, Salem Center, New York. He will be on the grass at dawn. Logan looked at the envelope. Then he looked at the tree line where the owl had gone. Then he picked the envelope up and held it to his nose and went very still, because under the wax and the parchment there was a smell he'd been smelling on the kid for 5 years, the bright humming charge, the thing that buzzed against his teeth, the thing Xavier had called magic, and it was soaked all the way through the paper. "Don't open it yet," Logan said. "It's got my name on it." "I know it's got your name on it, that's what I don't like. Somebody knows your name and the lawn and the time of day. That's 3 things too many for a stranger to know." He turned the envelope over. There was a crest pressed into the purple wax, a lion, a snake, a badger, an eagle, ringed around a letter H. "We take this to Charles." Charles Xavier turned the envelope over in his hands in the quiet of his study, and for the first time in the years Harry had known him, the man looked not calm but careful, the way you go careful around a thing you've heard of but never expected to hold. "I have felt the edges of this world my whole life," Xavier said softly. "On Cerebro, at the limits of the machine, there are places that go dark to me, whole pockets of the map where minds exist that I cannot read, behind something I have never had a word for. I assumed it was a flaw in the machine. I was wrong. It was them, hidden, shielded by exactly the thing that lives in you, Harry, the same power, organized into a society that has spent a very long time making sure people like me never look directly at it." He set the letter down. "Open it. It is addressed to you, and a man should read his own mail." Harry opened it. He read it twice. Then he read the part that mattered out loud, because Logan was watching him with the flat patience of a man waiting to be told whether he needed to start hurting things. "It's a school," Harry said. "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It says I've got a place. It says I'm a wizard." He looked up. "It says they've been expecting me since I was born." "Have they?" Logan said in a tone that boded poorly for whoever they were. The owls answered the question of how badly they wanted him over the next 3 days, and the answer was, very. When Harry didn't reply to the first letter, more came. A dozen the second morning, dropping cream envelopes all over the east lawn. 40 the third, until the students started catching them out of the air for sport, and Sarah set 3 on fire before Xavier asked her, gently, to stop antagonizing the postal system of a hidden nation. They came down chimneys. They came through the gaps around windows the school's security swore were sealed. One found its way into the lower levels, 3 floors down, past the steel and the blast doors, and landed on the danger room console addressed to Mr. 8. Potter, the metal room, lowest floor, and Logan looked at that one for a long time, because the lower levels were the place he'd told a frightened 8-year-old he'd be safe, and now a bird had walked a letter through all of it like the steel was paper. "This is the part I hate," Logan said that third night in Xavier's study with the owls still tapping at the dark windows. Not the magic. I made my peace with magic the day the kid blew the byre door off. It's that they can get to him anywhere. Steel doesn't stop it, your walls don't stop it, my claws sure as hell don't stop it. Whatever this is, it goes where it wants, and it wants the kid, and I can't fight a thing I can't put my hands on. Then perhaps, said a brisk voice from the doorway, in an accent Logan placed instantly as the country he'd found Harry in, you might try the radical experiment of speaking with us instead of growling at the windows. A woman stood in the study doorway, and no one had heard her arrive, which in a building full of telepaths and feral senses, and the most paranoid man alive should not have been possible. She was tall and severe in a traveling cloak the deep green of a forest at dusk, her hair drawn back so tight it looked painful, her eyes sharp behind square spectacles, and she carried herself with the unbending posture of a woman who had spent 40 years making teenagers do what they were told and had never once lost. She held a long, thin piece of wood loosely at her side, not pointed at anyone, simply held, the way Logan held a knife. Minerva McGonagall, she said. Deputy Headmistress of Hogwarts. I have come about a boy who will not answer his post. Her eyes went round the room, the bald man in the wheelchair, the scarred man already on his feet and between her and the child, the kid himself with the green eyes and the famous scar she had been looking at for 11 years in her imagination. They settled there on Harry, and something moved in the severe face that she did not let stay. Good heavens, she said quietly, you have his mother's eyes. They sat in the end because Xavier asked them to, and because McGonagall was plainly not a threat in the way Logan's whole body had braced for, and a man cannot stay coiled forever in front of a woman drinking tea. She told it plainly, which Logan respected. 11 years ago a dark wizard, the worst their world had produced in a century, had been killing his way toward power, and Harry's parents, James and Lily Potter, had stood against him, and he had come to their house on a night in late October and murdered them both. And then he had turned his wand on their infant son, and something no one had ever fully explained had happened, and the dark wizard had been the one to fall, broken, scattered, gone, and the baby had lived with nothing to show for the worst curse ever cast but a thin scar shaped like a lightning bolt. You are famous, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said, and there was no joy in her telling it. In our world you are the most famous child alive, the boy who lived, they call you. There are books about a night you cannot remember. There are children who have grown up on your name. She set down her cup, and you vanished. 11 years ago, after that night, you were placed with your mother's sister for protection. There is an old magic, a deep one, in the blood of family. While you could call your aunt's house your home, while her blood sheltered you, the followers of the wizard who killed your parents could not touch you there. It was the safest place in Britain for you. It was arranged by the greatest wizard of the age, who does not arrange things lightly. Logan had gone very still during this, the particular stillness Harry knew meant the worst kind of weather. Her sister, Logan said, Petunia, Dursley, number 4 Privet Drive. McGonagall turned to him, surprised he knew it. Yes. I'm familiar with the cupboard under the stairs, Logan said, and his voice did not rise, which was how everyone in the room understood the size of what was happening. I'm familiar with the bolt on the outside of the door. I'm familiar with what a 6-year-old weighs when he's been fed once a day if he's lucky, and how an arm sounds when a grown man twists it till it breaks, because I set that arm, lady, on a clinic table at 4 in the morning 5 years ago, after I carried him out of the safest place in Britain. He leaned forward. So let me make sure I understand the arrangement. The greatest wizard of the age looked at an orphan, and decided the safest thing for him was a house full of people who hated him, and then he put a magic fence around it and walked away and never once checked what was happening inside the fence. That about the size of it. The color had drained out of McGonagall's severe face. That is not, she began and stopped, because she was an honest woman and she had argued against that very placement 11 years ago, had sat on a garden wall as a cat all day watching those people and told Albus Dumbledore to his face that they were the worst sort of muggles and had been overruled for the greater good. I did not know, she said low. None of us knew it had come to that. We were told he was well. We were told he was loved. Her hand tightened on the wand in her lap. If what you say is true, Mr. Logan, you say is true, then a very great wrong was done to this child, and it was done by people who believed they were protecting him, and that is the worst kind of wrong there is, because it cannot even be hated cleanly. She looked at Harry, and the severity cracked just at the edges. I am sorry I sat on that wall. I had a bad feeling about that house, and I let myself be talked out of it, and I have thought about you every September for 11 years, wondering. I should have done more than wonder. You're the first one of them to say sorry, Harry said, It was the first he'd spoken since she'd arrived, and his voice was Logan's voice, level and unimpressed, and older than 11. "So that's something, but I should tell you in case it saves everyone time. I'm not going anywhere I don't choose to go. I had a place I didn't choose once. I'm not doing that again." He glanced at Logan and back. "If your school's a real school where I learn to use what I've got and nobody locks the doors, I'll think about it. But Logan comes with me, or I don't come at all, and that's not a thing anyone here gets to negotiate, including Logan." Logan's not-quite smile moved across his face and was gone. "Listen to him," he said, "to no one. Given orders. He learned from the best," Xavier murmured. McGonagall looked between the three of them, the wheelchair and the claws and him, with Lily's eyes giving terms like a small, unbending king, and something in her recalculated, the way the fire girl had recalculated over a blue flame 3 years before. "I think," she said slowly, "that I had better write to the headmaster. He will wish to come himself, and I think, Mr. Potter, that he is going to find you are not at all the child he has spent 11 years imagining." She rose and gathered her cloak, and at the door she paused and looked back at Logan with something that was almost, not quite, approval. "Whoever you are, and I cannot imagine the half of it, you did the thing the whole of my world failed to do. You went and got him. I shall not forget that, whatever comes." Harry didn't sleep much that night, and Logan, who never slept much, found him out on the cold east lawn at 2 in the morning, sitting in the dark grass where the owl had dropped the first letter, turning something over in his hands that turned out, when Logan got close, to be nothing at all. The kid was just holding his own empty hands and looking at them. Logan sat down beside him in the wet grass without a word, and let the quiet do what quiet between them had always done, which was carry the things words couldn't. "They told me it was a car crash," Harry said after a while. "The Dursleys, when I was little and I asked. They said my mum and dad were drunks who died in a car crash, and that's where I got the scar, and that I was lucky they'd taken me in at all." He kept looking at his hands. "I used to lie in the cupboard and try to picture it, the crash. I made up the whole thing, the road, the rain, what the car looked like. I gave them faces, my mum and dad, 'cause I didn't have a picture, so I just made some up." His voice didn't shake. That was the part that got into Logan, the absolute steadiness of it, Harry reporting the demolition of the one story he'd had about where he came from with the same flat calm he reported everything. And it was all a lie. There was no crash. There was a man with a wand who killed them. My mum stood in front of me. McGonagall said it tonight, after you went to find me. She came back to say goodbye proper, and she told me. My mum could have run, and she stood in front of me instead, and that's why the curse didn't work. That's the whole reason I'm not dead, because she wouldn't move. He finally looked up. "I'm famous because my mum loved me enough to die instead of run. And I never even knew her name till a witch said it in a study." Logan was quiet for a long moment. He had 100 years of dead behind him, and most of their names burned out of his head by the same kind of men who'd burned out his own, and he knew exactly the size of the hole the kid was looking into, because he lived in one shape just like it. "Her name was Lily," Logan said. "You hold on to that. They took your folks, and they took your story, and they fed you a lie in a cupboard, and tonight you got the real one, and the real one's better, even though it's worse, you understand me. A drunk in a car crash, that's nothing, that's just bad luck. A woman who stood in front of a killer and wouldn't move for her boy." He shook his head slowly. "That's the proudest thing a person can be made of, kid. That's not a thing to grieve sideways in the dark over. That's a thing to carry like a knife. You came from somebody who ran toward you when the worst thing in the world came through the door. That's where you get it from. I always wondered." He nudged the kid's shoulder with his own. "Turns out it's in the blood." Harry leaned into the nudge and didn't move away, and the two of them sat in the cold grass a while longer, the immortal man and the kid whose mother had been braver than gods, and somewhere in the dark an owl called once, and neither of them was alone. "You'd have liked her, I think," Harry said eventually. "I'd have liked anybody who made you," Logan said. "Come on, 2 in the morning, you'll be slow on the lawn." He hauled the kid up out of the grass. "Slower, I mean, you're always slow." Albus Dumbledore came the next evening, and he did not come by owl. There was simply a sound in the front hall like a soft, indrawn breath of the world, and then an old man stood on the flagstones where a moment before there had been nobody, very tall and very thin, with a silver beard tucked into his belt and half-moon spectacles, and robes the color of a midnight that had decided to be kind about it. He smelled to Logan of lemon and old parchment, and a power so deep and so quiet that it made the bright humming charge of the Hogwarts letters seem like a child's sparkler, and under all of it, faint but there, the thing Logan trusted least in any man, the smell of someone perfectly at ease with being the most dangerous person in the room and choosing, for now, to be gentle about it. "Forgive the manner of my arrival," Dumbledore said. His eyes, blue and bright, went round the hall and missed nothing, and came to rest on Harry with a warmth that looked entirely genuine and was, Logan judged, also entirely a tool. Doors have never much suited me. Charles, it has been too long. You look well, Albus. Xavier inclined his head. The two of them regarded each other across the hall with the specific courtesy of two men who have each spent a lifetime carrying more weight than anyone should and recognized the carry in the other. You felt the school go dark to you all these years. I felt a great many things go dark to me, the night a particular child vanished off the edge of the world, Dumbledore said. I confess I did not imagine he had landed somewhere quite so interesting. A house of gifted children. A guardian who is, I think, rather more than he appears. His blue gaze moved to Logan and brightened the way a scholar's does over a new specimen, the same look Brennan had worn, and Logan marked the resemblance and did not care for it. You have hidden him very well, sir, from me, from everyone. That is not an easy thing to do in either of our worlds. Wasn't trying to hide him from you specifically, Logan said. Didn't know you existed till yesterday. I was hidden him from everybody. Habit. He didn't sit. He stood with his shoulder to the wall and his eyes on the old man and let the silence do its work, and Dumbledore, to his credit, let it too, the two of them taking each other's measure in the firelight. I know your name now, though. McGonagall told it to me last night, the way you say the name of God or a tax collector, the greatest wizard of the age, the man who arranged the safe place. Ah, Dumbledore said softly. Yes, I rather thought we would arrive here. I want to hear you say it, Logan said. I want to hear you in your own words. Tell me why a man with all that power put a baby in a cupboard and walked off. Dumbledore was quiet a moment, and when he spoke the twinkle had gone out of him, and what was left was older and heavier and, Logan thought, closer to true. I will not insult you with the word cupboard, for I did not know of the cupboard, and the not knowing is its own sin, and I claim it. But I will not pretend I did not make the choice that led there. He folded his long hands. When Harry's parents died, there were those still living who had loved the wizard who killed them, and who would have done anything to finish what he started. The only protection deep enough to hold against them was old blood magic, anchored in his mother's sacrifice and renewed by his mother's kin. As long as Harry could call his aunt's house home, that magic held, and no follower of Lord Voldemort could touch him there. It was the safest place in Britain. I knew the family was cold. I judged that cold and safe was a better bargain for a child than warm and dead. I made that judgment for the greater good, and I made it without ever once going to look at what the bargain cost him day by day, because I did not let myself, because looking would have made it harder to keep doing the sums. He met Logan's eyes without flinching. That is the answer, sir. I traded his childhood for his life, and I told myself it was wisdom, and I did not check the price. You found the price. You carried it out at 4 a.m. You have every right to despise me, and I will not argue you out of it, because some part of me agrees with you. It was, Logan had to admit, a better answer than he'd expected. It was honest, which most powerful men never were, and it indicted the man fully, and it still made Logan's skin crawl, and it took him a moment to understand why. You're sorry, Logan said slowly. I believe you're sorry, but you'd do it again, wouldn't you? Right now, no in the cupboard, no in the arm. If you ran the sums again and cold and safe still beat warm and dead, you'd put him right back. You're sorry about the price. You're not sorry about the trade. Dumbledore did not answer, which was an answer, and across the hall Xavier closed his eyes, because Xavier had broken his own deepest vow for this exact child 3 years before, had reached into a vow he'd sworn never to break because one boy needed it, and the difference between the two old men hung in the room like smoke. Yeah, Logan said, that's what I thought. That's the thing I smell on you, old man, under the lemon drops. You love him, I believe that too. But you love the plan more, and the day they stop pointin' the same direction, the plan wins and the kid pays. I've been around men who run sums on people's lives. I've been a sum on a table in a program. I know the breed, he pushed off the wall. So here's how it's gonna be. He can learn your magic because it's his and he's got a right to it, and I'd be a hypocrite to lock a door on him after what I pulled him out of. But he learns it on his terms with me close enough to reach, and the first time I catch you traddin' one piece of that kid for some greater good he didn't agree to, you and me are gonna have a conversation you won't enjoy. Are we clear? Remarkably, Dumbledore said, and the twinkle came back, rueful now, and something in it had genuine respect. Charles told me once that the most dangerous man he ever met had the softest heart, and would deny it to his dying day, which, he added, might be a very long time coming. I begin to see his meaning. The old wizard sighed, and the lightness fell away again. And I am afraid, gentlemen, that the matter has grown more urgent than school terms and house points, because I did not come here only about a letter. I came because 3 weeks ago, something began hunting in both our worlds at once, and it is hunting this boy, and I think it is doing so with help that should not exist. His name is Corvus Selwyn, Dumbledore said, and he said it the way McGonagall had said Voldemort, with the weight reserved for things that should be dead and are not. He was one of Voldemort's inner circle in the bad years. Cleverer than most of them and colder, and unlike most of them he was never caught, because when his master fell he did not boast and he did not fight. He went very quiet and very patient and very far underground, and he waited 11 years for the one thing he has always believed, that the power which broke the Dark Lord did not vanish that night. It went into the child who survived, into you, Harry. The blue eyes were grave. Selwyn does not want you dead, which makes him more dangerous than the ones who do. He wants what he believes you carry. He has spent 11 years searching for you with magic far darker and far quieter than a school's enrollment quill, and for 11 years this house hid you from him as surely as it hid you from me. Hid me, Harry said. Past tense, Dumbledore agreed. Because 3 weeks ago Corvus Selwyn found a key that fit a lock the rest of us did not know existed. He found a man in your world, Charles, Logan's world. A man who has also been hunting a child with a power he cannot name, who has, I am told, a great deal of money and a great many soldiers and a habit of building weapons out of people. The room went cold and quiet. Brennan, Logan said. I do not know the name he gave, said Dumbledore. I know only what my people in the ministry intercepted by the thinnest luck 3 weeks past. A wizard's correspondence, warded against every eye but reflected once in a scrying pool he should have shielded better. Selwyn has made a bargain with a man of science. Each holds half of a key. Your man Logan has the means, the soldiers, the machine that turns off the telepath, the resources to take a child by force from a fortress. What he lacked was the ability to find that child behind these walls and to understand what the child is once found. Selwyn lacks soldiers and machines. What he has is a curse old enough to taste the blood of the Potter line across an ocean, and the knowledge, the only knowledge in either world, of exactly what Harry Potter is and how to take it from him while he yet breathes. Dumbledore's hands had tightened. Apart, we have held each of them off for years. Together, they are something neither of our worlds has faced. A dark wizard's sight married to a weapon maker's reach. Selwyn will find him through any wall ever built. Brennan will come through the wall Selwyn finds, and they are coming, gentlemen. The only question left is where and when and whether we are standing on ground of our choosing or theirs. For a moment no one spoke. The fire popped. Out in the dark the owls had stopped tapping at the windows, as though even they had gone still to listen. Logan was the one who broke it, because Logan was always the one who broke it, the man who'd spent 100 years learning that the only way through a thing was through it. Okay, he said, so they're common together. Good. 3 pairs of old, powerful eyes turned to him. I've been fightin' these two have separate for years, runnin' from one, walls against the other, and it never ends 'cause there's always more wall to find and more road to run. But you put 'em both in one place at one time, common for one kid. The not-quite smile was gone, and what stood in its place was the thing Creed had seen on a snow-covered lawn, the weapon under the man, calm and total. Then for the first time in 5 years, I know exactly where everything I've ever wanted to kill is gonna be. We don't run from that, we pick the ground, we make 'em come to it. And we end both halves on the same night, so the kid gets to grow up without looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. You are proposing, McGonagall said faintly, from the doorway where she had reappeared as silently as before, to fight a dark wizard and a private army at the same time, on purpose. Lady, Logan said, I've been waitin' my whole life for everything that wants to hurt the people I love to do me the courtesy of showin' up in one place at one time. I'm not gonna waste it. He looked at Harry, who was watching him with the green eyes steady and unafraid, Harry he'd built, the kid who ran toward the fire. But I'm not doing it without him knowing the whole of it, 'cause I don't lie to him, it's the rule. So, he crouched down to the kid's eye level, the way they all did now, the way the whole strange family had learned. 2 of the worst things in 2 whole worlds are common for you cub together soon. We can run and run forever, or we can stand once and finish it, and stand in means a night worse than the one that put that scar under your collarbone. Your life, your call. You tell me, and whatever you say, that's what we do. Harry didn't take long. He had been raised on the truth, and the truth had made him quick. I spent 6 years hiding in a cupboard hoping it would stop, Harry said. It never stopped. You taught me it never stops, not by hiding. He put his hand out, the old grip, and closed it around Logan's wrist over the white scars where the claws lived. We stand, we pick the ground, and Logan, the green eyes held his. This time I'm not staying behind the doors. Logan looked at the hand on his wrist for a long moment, and at him he'd carried out of the rain, and he did not tell him no, because the no would have been a lie, and because somewhere in the last 5 years the cub had grown teeth of his own and earned the right to bear them. No, Logan agreed quietly. This time you're not, he stood and turned to the two old men and the witch in the doorway, the most powerful people in either world, and gave them their marching orders like the sergeant he'd been in a dozen wars no history book remembered. All right, Selwyn finds him anywhere, so walls are out, we don't defend, we ambush. Brennan needs his machine to kill the telepath, so we make the machine the first thing that dies. We've got what days, then we've got work. Charles, Albus, you two are gonna stop measuring each other and start measuring the enemy. McGonagall, I'm gonna need everything your world knows about killing a man who won't stay dead. And somebody get the kids who can fight ready, and the kids who can't somewhere these two halves will never think to look. He picked his jacket off the chair, the old canvas one, 5 years older and patched at both elbows, the one he'd wrapped around a freezing boy on Privet Drive, and shrugged it on. We've run long enough, let 'em come. They had 11 days, as it turned out, though no one knew the number then. The strangest alliance either world had ever assembled went to work in those 11 days, and Harry watched it form around him with the careful attention he gave everything, cataloging the way the pieces fit. Two old men who had spent the first evening measuring each other stopped measuring and started building. Xavier laid out maps of the grounds and the approaches and the sight lines, the soldiers' geometry Logan had taught him to respect. Dumbledore walked those same grounds at dusk, laying down wards that smelled, to Logan, of the same bright charge as the kid. Lines of old protection that would not stop a wizard who could find Harry through anything but would, Dumbledore promised, scream the instant one crossed them. And an early warning was worth more than a wall you could not build. Hank McCoy tore apart everything the school had recovered off Brennan's dead the night of the first strike, and built, out of 3 years of patient grudge, a thing he called a baffle, a field that would hold a corridor of the lower levels free of the program's dampener so that whatever happened, Xavier would not go blind and deaf at the worst moment again. McGonagall, who had decided somewhere in the first evening that the scarred man was the most sensible person in either school, sat with Logan over strong tea, and told him every cold true thing her world knew about killing what would not die, about the curses that severed and the fires that did not go out and the old dark magics a man like Selwyn would bring. And Logan listened as he listened to everything that might keep Harry alive completely, taking notes in a hand no one else could read. And Logan drilled them. The older kids who could fight, John and the cocky telekinetics, and the ones with gifts that could be turned into weapons. He ran them every dawn until they could do the thing he'd spent 5 years teaching one green-eyed boy. Stay calm when the world came apart, do exactly what needed doing and not one motion more, and above all live through the moment their gift failed them, because against a dark wizard in a private army, every gift would fail, and what was left after that was the only thing Logan had ever truly trusted. You're not soldiers, he told them the last dawn, the 11 of them ranged across the cold lawn in the gray light. You're kids. You shouldn't be anywhere near this, and if I had a way to do it without you I'd take it and never look back. I don't, so here's the deal, you don't be heroes, heroes die. You watch each other's backs, you do your job, you fall back when I say fall back, and you come home. All of you, that's the only win I care about. The bad guys are mine and Charles's and the old man's to worry about. Your whole job is to still be breathing at sunrise. Can you do that for me? They said they could. They were children and they were lying, the brave way children lie, and Logan knew it, and there was nothing to be done about it but stand between them and as much of the night as one immortal body could cover. He found Harry last at the edge of the lawn, the kid who would not be staying behind the doors this time. He didn't give him the speech he'd given the others. He gave him the truth, which was the only currency that had ever passed between them. I can't keep you out of it, Logan said. I tried that 3 years ago with the blast doors, and you near died behind 'em anyway, and you've never let me forget it, so I'm not gonna insult you. You'll be in it. You'll be in it next to me where I can reach you, and you'll do exactly what I say the second I say it, and the one thing, the only thing you do not do is trade yourself for me. He took him by both shoulders. You hear. Selwyn wants what's in you. Brennan wants the thing he can't name. Victor wants my face when they take you. The whole night is built around you handing yourself over to save somebody you love, probably me. That's the trap. You walked into the last one running toward me. This one you hold the line and you trust me to do my job even when it looks like I'm Lawson. Promise me that, not the blast door promise you didn't mean. A real one. Harry looked up at him in the gray dawn, 11 years old, scarred, calm, the most dangerous and most loved thing in 2 worlds. I promise I'll trust you to do your job, Harry said. I'm not promising I won't do mine. It was not the promise Logan had asked for. It was, he understood, the only one Harry he'd built was capable of giving, and the truth of it, the awful loyal truth, closed his throat for a second before he could answer. Yeah, Logan said roughly. I know, apple didn't fall far, get some sleep, cub, they come tomorrow. Outside, the owls lifted off the dark grounds all at once and scattered into the night to carry the word, and 3 weeks of waiting became something with a clock on it, and across an ocean, a cold wizard and a colder scientist bent their 2 halves of a key toward a single lock, and did not yet know that the thing behind the door had stopped running and turned around to wait for them with its claws out. Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. Claws out. They came on the 12th night, not the 11th, because Corvus Selwyn understood waiting the way Creed understood it, and he let them sit 1 extra day in their readiness until the edge of it had started to dull. That was the first thing Logan learned about the wizard before he ever saw his face, that he was patient in the way of a man who had buried a cause and intended to dig it back up whole. The ward screamed a little after 3 in the morning, the dead hour, the hour the body least wants to fight. They screamed in Dumbledore's voice inside everyone's skull at once, a single ringing word here, and then the night came apart. Logan was awake because Logan was always awake. He was on his feet with the claws out before the second scream, and Harry was off the cot a half-second behind him, dressed because the kid had slept in his boots the last 3 nights the old way, ready to run, except this time ready to run toward. They went down through the waking house together, the family arming around them in the dark, and out onto the east lawn where 11 days of preparation met the thing they had prepared for. It was worse than any of them had planned for, because the enemy had planned for the plan. Brennan's force came out of the tree line to the north in the matte-black silence Harry remembered from the steel corridor, more of them this time, 2 dozen at least, and the air ahead of them shimmered with the now familiar pressure of the dampening field, broadcast from a vehicle-sized device they rolled out of the dark on tracks. A thing built since the last time, bigger, meaner. Xavier's voice in their heads thinned and frayed at its edge. But Hank's baffle held a corridor of clarity across the center of the lawn, exactly as he'd promised, a wedge of ground where the telepath could still see, and the X-Men fell back into it by drill, and the first volley of humming rounds met a wall of John's telekinesis and Sarah's fire and Aurora's rising wind and did not get through. That was the part they'd planned for, the part they hadn't came from the south. The southern dark simply opened. There was no other word Harry had for it. A seam tore in the ordinary night and cold came through it, a cold that had nothing to do with weather, and through the seam walked things that should not walk, gaunt cloaked shapes that drew the warmth and the hope out of the air around them as they came. And behind the gaunt things came men in dark robes with wands already lit, and behind the men, unhurried, in robes the deep red of old blood, came a tall, pale wizard with a long, colorless face and eyes like 2 chips of slate, who lifted one hand at the chaos on the lawn the way a conductor lifts a baton. Dementors, Dumbledore said, and for the first time the old man's voice had fear in it. Selwyn, you mad creature, you brought Dementors across an ocean. Charles, the children, the cold ones feed on joy, on hope. They will hollow your students out from the inside. Keep them in the light. EXBCTOPATRONUM. Silver fire burst from the end of his wand and took the shape of a great soaring bird and drove back the nearest of the gaunt things, and beside him McGonagall's wand threw a silver cat into the dark, and for a moment there was light against the cold. And then the 2 halves of the night met in the middle, and the battle Logan had wanted, the battle where everything that wished to hurt his boy stood in one place at one time, began in earnest, and Logan discovered the thing all generals discover, which is that the battle you wanted and the battle you get are never the same animal. Harry fought on the north line where the soldiers were, because that was where Logan had put him, and because soldiers were a problem he understood. He had been trained for men like this since he was 6 years old, and the training held. He did not panic. He did not throw the wild grenade. He stood in the wedge of clear ground beside John and Sarah, and he worked, calm at the center of his own storm, the still pond Logan had spent 5 years teaching him to be, and the air around him did what he asked. He took the rounds out of the air. That was the thing none of Brennan's men had a counter for, because it was not a force field they could overload and not a mind they could dampen. It was a boy asking the bullets, individually, politely, to go somewhere else, and they went, snatched sideways by the dozen and dropped harmless in the grass. When a soldier got close, Harry was already not where the soldier expected, low and fast and behind him. A knee, a throat, the bone-handled knife gone again before the man finished turning, exactly as Logan had drilled into him on the worn grass behind a Highland croft. He fought like a small piece of Logan broken off and set loose, and Brennan, watching from behind his soldiers with his cold tablet, made a note, because Brennan made notes even while his world burned down. The asset is integrated with the mutant line, Brennan said into his radio, unhurried. Telekinetic interdiction of projectiles, fascinating. Recommend we stop wasting ordnance and proceed to the wizard's solution. Selwyn, your move. We are holding the field at considerable cost, and I dislike paying for things twice. Across the lawn in the cold the Dementors had brought, the pale wizard in blood-red robes inclined his colorless head, and did not hurry because Corvus Selwyn never hurried, and turned his slate eyes toward the north line where a green-eyed boy was plucking bullets out of the sky, and smiled the way a man smiles who has found, at the end of 11 patient years, exactly the thing he buried a war to find. That was when the wind off the dark brought Logan the scent he'd been waiting for under all the others, and Victor Creed walked out of the south to collect on 100 years. Jimmy, the roar of it carried over the whole burning lawn. Creed came through Selwyn's robed wizards like they were standing still, scattering dark-robed men who outranked him and did not dare say so, his amber eyes fixed on the one thing in 2 worlds he had ever wanted more than blood. You picked the ground, I heard, the schoolteacher pick in ground like a real soldier. He spread the long arms wide, taking in the Dementors and the soldiers and the dueling wizards and the burning grass, the whole impossible war. You did all this for a kid. You brought 2 worlds down on your own head for one green-eyed brat. His grin split the colorless dawn. I never been prouder of you, little brother. Now let's finish it. Logan met him in the center of the lawn, in the wedge of clear ground, where the baffle held and the dampener couldn't reach and Xavier could still see, and the 2 old wolves crashed together for what both of them knew, in the place under thought where animals know things, was the last time. This time Logan did not fight to win cuts. He fought the way he'd promised Creed in the snow 3 years before, to end it, and Creed felt the difference in the first exchange and laughed, because the difference was the whole gift he'd come for. They tore across the clear ground, claws and weight and a century of debt, and the adamantium went where bone could not, and Creed's wounds closed slower than they used to, because Logan was older and meaner and entirely out of patience, and for the first time in 100 years Victor Creed was not the most dangerous thing on the field. But Creed did not have to win. That was the trap inside the trap, and Logan understood it a beat too late. Creed only had to keep him here in the center, busy, his back to the north line where a green-eyed boy fought, while the patient pale man in the blood-red robes finished walking the long, quiet circle he'd been walking since the dark first opened. The rest of the field for a while went the way they'd planned. Aurora rose off the ground on her own wind, with the lightning crawling white through her hair, and brought the sky down on Brennan's soldiers, and the soldiers' armor that turned bullets did nothing at all against 100 million volts off the roof of the world. John lifted the dampener device, the great mean machine on its tracks, 2 feet off the ground with his mind, screaming, his nose bleeding, and held it long enough for Sarah to put a column of white fire through its housing, and the field collapsed, and Xavier's full sight crashed back across the lawn like a tide coming in, and for 10 seconds the X-Men were not blind anymore, and the soldiers learned what it was to fight a school that could finally see them. Brennan understood numbers, and the numbers had turned. He keyed his radio with the cold calm of a man reading a balance sheet trending the wrong way. Fields down. Asset extraction is now solely the wizard's contract. I am declaring this engagement unprofitable and withdraw. He did not finish the word, because Aurora Munro had not forgotten a steel corridor 3 years before, a gray man reading a tablet while children dropped in the gas, a device thrown that put her on her knees while a boy bled out behind her. She came down out of the storm in front of him, and she was not calm and she was not merciful, and the last thing Director Brennan ever filed was the observation, too late to write down, that he had spent his whole career building weapons out of other people's children and had never once stopped to be afraid of their teachers. The lightning took him. There was very little of the cold gray man left for the program to recover, and the program, what was left of it on that lawn, broke and ran for the tree line, and the north line was won. It did not matter. That was the thing Logan would carry afterward, the thing that woke him in the years to come. They won the north line, and they broke the army, and they killed the man who built the machines, and none of it mattered, because Corvus Selwyn had never needed the army. The army was the noise. The army was the thing he'd rented from Brennan to keep 2 old wizards and a wheelchair, and a pack of gifted children busy. For the quarter of an hour it took him to walk his circle and reach Harry. Dumbledore saw the circle for what it was a moment before it closed, and through everything he was across the lawn to break it. What happened then between the 2 wizards was a thing Harry would spend years trying to describe and never quite manage, because it moved faster than language, and most of it was light. Dumbledore came at Selwyn like a thunderhead, and the air between them filled with fire that was not fire, and chains that were not metal, and a roaring silver flock of conjured things. And Selwyn met all of it without hurrying, giving ground, smiling, because giving ground was the plan, because every step backward drew Dumbledore 1 step further from the kid. The greatest wizard of the age was winning the duel and losing the war, and he knew it, and there was nothing he could do, because a man cannot be in two places, and Selwyn had built the whole night to make him choose. You were always the better dueler, Albus, Selwyn said, conversational, turning a curse aside that would have ended a lesser man. It was never going to be settled with wands. It was going to be settled with patience, and I have 11 years of it, and you have a school full of children you cannot bear to lose. He flicked his wand, not at Dumbledore, but past him, toward the center of the lawn, toward the two immortal animals locked in their 100-year fight. Let me show you the arithmetic. The curse hit Logan in the back. It was not a wound. Logan had taken 10,000 wounds and worn them like weather. This was something the program had never built, and his body had never learned, a cord of black light that wrapped him from shoulder to hip and bit inward and stayed, and where it touched, the healing stopped. Logan felt it the way you feel a door close that you didn't know could close. The cuts Creed had put in him an instant before, the cuts that should have been gone already, simply remained, open, bleeding, ordinary, and a cold came into him that had nothing to do with the Dementors and everything to do with mortality, with being, for the first time and longer than he had memory, a thing that could be hurt and kept hurt. Creed felt the change in his brother under his hands and went still, his amber eyes flicking to the pale wizard, something in the animal of him not liking this, not liking a thing that could do to Logan what 100 years of Creed had never managed. What did you? He started. I removed the unfair advantage, Selwyn said. Hold him. And the Dementors came, 3 of them, gliding low across the burning grass to the center of the lawn, drawn to the one thing on the whole field that had the most to lose, because Logan was no longer the empty loner they would have passed over 100 years ago. Logan had a family now. Logan had hope now, a cub in a school and a folding cot and a small life worth 100 big ones. And the cold thing smelled all of it on him like blood in the water and folded around him where he knelt with the black cord biting and the wounds not closing. And they began with terrible patience to draw it out of him, every good thing, every warm thing, the rain on a country road and him in the green jumper and the apple that stayed red, all of it lifting out of him into the cold, and Logan, who could not be killed, knelt in the grass and felt himself being emptied and could not stop it. Logan, Harry saw it from the broken north line. He saw the black cord and the not closing wounds and the 3 cold things folding around the only father he had ever had, and the wild thing came up in him then, the grenade with the pin out, bigger than the byre, bigger than the steel corridor, bigger than anything, and he did not make it calm this time, because there are things a calm pond was never meant to hold. He ran toward Logan. Of course he ran toward Logan. Logan had built him too. And Corvus Selwyn, who had buried a war and dug 11 patient years to be standing in exactly this spot at exactly this moment, turned from his duel with the greatest wizard of the age, and opened his arms to Harry running across the burning lawn toward the thing he loved, and sprang the trap that the whole night had been built to spring. Stop there, Selwyn said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He let his wand drift lazy, until its pale tip rested an inch from the back of Logan's bent neck where the Dementors already crowded close, and Harry skidded to a halt in the churned grass 10 feet away with his whole body still leaning toward the man he loved, because the meaning of the angle of that wand was a thing even an 11-year-old understood at once. You feel that cold, Harry Potter? Selwyn's slate eyes never left him. The creatures at his back are Dementors. They do not kill. Killing is small. They take the soul out through the mouth and leave the body breathing, empty, forever. It is the one harm your remarkable guardian cannot heal, because there is nothing of the body in it. His wounds I have closed his healing against. That is a cruelty, but a temporary one. This would not be temporary. One word from me, and the only father you have ever known kneels in this grass for the rest of his very long life with no one home behind his eyes. He tilted his head. I have spent 11 years learning what you are. I do not wish to damage it. I wish you to walk to me of your own will, and put your hand in mine, and come quietly to a place where you and I will discuss the power that broke my master. Do that and I call them off, and he keeps his soul and lives and grieves, which is what fathers are for. Refuse fight, let the bald man in the chair reach into your head and try to spirit you away, which I can feel him preparing to do even now, and I give the word, and you spend the rest of your life knowing you chose to keep your freedom over your father's soul. The pale face was serene. Take your time, I have so much of it. The lawn had gone quiet around them. Dumbledore stood frozen mid-stride, his wand half raised, the silver light dying on its tip, because he too could see the angle of Selwyn's wand and do the arithmetic, and there was no spell fast enough, none, that would not be 1/2 second too slow. Across the grass Xavier sat in his chair with his fingers at his temple and his face gray, and Harry felt him at the door of his mind, the polite knock, frantic now, I can reach you, the field is down, I can pull you out, I can take you to safety, hold still, let me in. the promise made to a man over a sleeping child 3 years before, the vow Xavier had sworn to break for exactly this moment. And Harry, standing in the ruin of the lawn with the Dementors at his father's neck, did the bravest and most terrible thing of his short, brave life. He answered Xavier with the calm he had been taught, the still pond, mind to mind, in words that would stay with the old telepath until the day he died. Don't. If you pull me out, he says the word, and they take Logan's soul. You know he means it. I know he means it. Harry Xavier's voice broke against the inside of his skull. I cannot let you walk into that man's hands. I swore to your father I would reach you. I swore you swore you'd pull me out to save me. Pulling me out now doesn't save me. It kills Logan, the part of him that matters, forever. So it's not the thing you swore to do. Harry's mental voice did not shake. That was the worst of it for Xavier, the steadiness, the kid doing the cold clear math the way the man beside the door had taught him. I'm doing my job. Tell Logan I kept the real promise, not the blast door one. Tell him I trusted him to do his job, and I did mine, and his job now is to come and get me, because he always comes, and I'm counting on it. The mental voice gentled, 11 years old, saying goodbye. Don't pull me out, Professor, let me go. And tell him it's not the cupboard. Tell him I chose this one. And Charles Xavier, who had spent his life refusing to override the will of another living soul, kept the vow by breaking the lesser promise inside it, and took his fingers from his temple and let Harry go. And it was the hardest thing he had ever done, and he would never be entirely sure to the end of his days that it had been right. Logan, Harry said out loud now, because the man had to hear it from him, had to. It's okay. I'm doing my job, you taught me. Come and get me. Logan, kneeling in the cold with the Dementors drawing the light out of him and the black cord biting and his own blood not closing, lifted his head with everything he had left, which was almost nothing, and looked at the kid he'd carried out of the rain walking calmly toward the worst man in two worlds to keep 3 cold things off his father's soul, and the sound that came out of him was not a word. It was the oldest sound the animal in him had, older than language, the sound a wolf makes when the thing is taken that it cannot live without, and it did nothing, and he could do nothing. And the doing nothing was the whole black country he had spent 100 years learning to never set foot in, and now he lived there and would. Harry put his small hand in Corvus Selwyn's pale one. The wizard's fingers closed around it, gentle, victorious. He lifted his wand from Logan's neck, and the Dementors lifted with it, drawing back, unfed, sullen, and the terrible cold receded by a degree. He drew him in against his blood-red robes, and from somewhere in them produced a small tarnished object, a broken pocket watch, the kind of worthless thing a man might find in a junk shop, and Harry's eyes caught on it because he had one just like it at home on his windowsill, a gift on a made-up birthday, and that was the last ordinary thought he had before Selwyn pressed the watch into his bound hand, and the world hooked him behind the navel and tore him sideways out of it. Find me then, Wolf, Selwyn said to the kneeling ruin of Logan, almost kindly, as the magic took him and Harry. You have until the new moon, when the power comes ripe and I take it out of him. Come and get him by all means. I should so like to meet the thing that taught a potter to walk to his own captor with his chin up. It will make breaking him so much more interesting. And then the wizard and the kid folded out of the world between one heartbeat and the next, and were gone, and the place where they had stood held nothing but churned grass and 3 sullen Dementors and the fading smell of bright magic, and the long terrible quiet after came down over the burning lawn like snow. Dumbledore moved the instant the wand left Logan's neck, because there was finally something a spell could reach. The silver bird tore off his wand and threw the 3 Dementors and drove them shrieking up off the lawn and into the dark seam they had come through, and McGonagall's silver cat harried the last of them out, and the unnatural cold went with them, and the ordinary cold of a dawn in late summer came back, which felt, after the other kind, almost like warmth. The black cord around Logan came apart under Dumbledore's wand a breath later, unmade with 3 soft words that cost the old wizard visible effort, and the healing came back into Logan all at once, the creed cuts closing, the ordinary mortality draining out of his body. It did not matter. The wounds the Dementors had opened were not the kind a body closes. He knelt in the churned grass where his son had stood, emptied of every warm thing they had drawn out of him, and the family came to him through the smoke, what was left of it, the ones still standing. They were all still standing. That was the one mercy of the night, the only one, and Logan would understand its size later, when he could understand anything. The kids had come home, all of them, the way he'd ordered. Sarah had a broken arm, and John had bled half a pint from his nose, and would not stop grinning about the dampener even as Hank set the arm, and Aurora stood swaying with the storm guttering out of her, and her eyes fixed on the place where a gray man had been. Marcus, the little one who spoiled things, had not been in the fight, had been hidden where the 2 halves of the night would never think to look, exactly as Logan had arranged, and that was the only thing Logan had done right all night, and it was not enough, because the one he could not bear to lose was the one he had let walk away. Creed was gone. Logan registered it dimly, the absence of the scent. The old wolf slipped off into the dark the instant the prize was taken and the face delivered. Victor had gotten the thing he came 100 years for, the look on Logan's face when the world took what he loved, and Victor was the kind of creature who knew to leave a debt unfinished when finishing it would cost him the pleasure of doing it slow. He would be at the end of this. Logan knew it as well as he knew his own name, which was one of the few things he had left to know. Wherever Selwyn had taken Harry, Victor Creed would find his way there too, to be in the room for the worst of it. Logan, Xavier's chair came up over the broken ground, and the old telepath's face was wet, which Harry had never seen and Logan had never seen, the man who carried the whole loud world dry-eyed for 30 years. He spoke to me, at the end, mind to mind. I have to tell you what he said, all of it, because he made me promise, and because you need to hear it before you do the thing you are about to do. Xavier took Logan's bloody hand in both of his, the way Logan had once taken his over a wounded child. He said to tell you he kept the real promise, not the blast door one. He said he trusted you to do your job, and he did his, and your job now is to come and get him, because you always come and he is counting on it. The old man's voice cracked, and he said to tell you it is not the cupboard. He said to tell you he chose this one. Something came back into Logan's face when he heard it. Not warmth, the Dementors had taken the warmth, and it would be a long time returning. What came back was worse and harder, and the thing the whole alliance would follow into hell over the next 9 days. Purpose, narrowed to a single white point, the weapon under the man standing all the way up out of the grief, because the grief could wait and the kid could not. 9 days, Logan said, his voice was wrecked and level. He said new moon. Charles, how long? 9 days, Xavier confirmed. The new moon is 9 days out. He needs him whole until then. That is 9 days in which Harry is alive and frightened and waiting for you and certain you're coming. Then he's right, Logan said. He looked at the two old wizards, the witch, the gray, exhausted school, the strangest army ever assembled, all of them looking back at him in the smoking dawn. He's right, and I'm common, and all of you are common with me, because that pale son of a bitch made one mistake tonight, the same one everybody makes. He took the kid to make me hurt. He doesn't understand yet that there's no version of this where he uses my boy against me in lives. There's just how far I gotta walk to reach him. He turned to Dumbledore. You said you can trace dark magic that big, a door he tore in the world, a thing like that, it leaves a mark. Find it, find where he took him. It will take days, Dumbledore said quietly. He will have hidden the place behind every ward 11 years can build, but yes, Logan, I can find it, I will find it. I owe this boy a childhood I traded away, and I will spend whatever is left of me buying back one piece of the debt. The blue eyes had no twinkle in them at all now. We will find where he is. And then I think we will all of us go and remind two worlds why they spent so long agreeing to leave each other alone. Logan looked north, toward the dark where the magic had folded his son out of the world, and let both sets of claws slide out into the gray light and did not put them away. 9 days, he said again, to no one, to Harry who couldn't hear him, to the promise he had made over a sleeping child in a Highland truck 5 years and a whole life ago. Hold on, cub, I'm common. You hold on the way I taught you. The school did not sleep in the days that followed. No one suggested it should. Dumbledore took the ruined East Lawn for his own, the place where Selwyn had torn the world open, and he knelt in the churned grass for hours at a stretch with his eyes closed and his wand laid flat on his palms, reading the wound the dark magic had left in the air the way a tracker reads a print, and the work aged him visibly day on day, and he did not stop. McGonagall went back across the ocean and came again with 3 grim-faced witches and wizards who owed the Potters or owed Dumbledore or owed the simple debt of being decent, and they bent their knowledge to the same wound. Hank stripped Brennan's recovered hardware to its bones and built, out of the corpse of the thing that had blinded Xavier twice, a thing that would protect a telepath inside any dampening field a dying program could still field. Aurora trained, wide-eyed and silent, and did not speak of the gray man, and no one asked her to. And Logan ran the war as he had run a dozen wars before, the emptied man functioning on the cold machinery the Dementors had not been able to reach because it lived below the place where warmth was kept. He did not grieve out loud. He went into Harry's room once on the first night and stood in it a long while, the maid cot and the boxed paperbacks and the bone-handled knife the kid had left behind because he'd slept in his boots ready to run toward, and on the windowsill a tarnished pocket watch that didn't work, the twin of the one Selwyn had used to hook the kid out of the world. Logan picked it up and held it in one scarred hand and stood there in the dark, and whatever passed across his face he let no one see, and then he put the watch in his pocket, where it would stay until he could put it back in the hand it belonged to, and he went back out to the maps and did not go into that room again until it was time to bring the kid home to it. "You should rest," Xavier told him the seventh night, finding him at the window where the two of them had stood the night of the first strike 3 years before. "I'll rest when he's in the next room," Logan said. He didn't turn from the glass. "You ever notice that, Charles? How the only sleep that's worth a damn is the kind you do when the thing you love is breathin', close enough to hear. 100 years I slept like a soldier, one ear open, never under. Then a kid starts breathin' across a truck cab from me and I sleep like a baby for the first time since they put the metal in. And now he's gone and I'm right back to one ear open, except there's no truck and no cab and no breathin', just 9 days and a circle on a floor somewhere I can't reach yet." He finally looked at the old man, and his eyes were the worst thing Xavier had seen in 30 years of looking into the eyes of the hurt. "Find me the place, Charles. That's all I need from any of you. Find me the door, I'll do the rest. I was built to do the rest. It's the one thing those bastards made me good for, and for once in my long, miserable life I'm gonna use it on something worth using it on." On the 8th night, Dumbledore opened his eyes on the ruined lawn and stood, swaying, and said one word into the dark: "Found." Harry woke on a stone floor in a cold room, and the first thing he did, before he opened his eyes, before he moved, was take inventory, because that was the first thing Logan had ever taught him, and it had never once failed him. He was lying on flagstones, old ones worn smooth, in a room that smelled of damp and dust and the bright cold tang of a great deal of magic worked over a great many years. His hands were not tied, but when he reached for the wild thing inside him, the power that came when he asked, there was nothing there, a flat silence where the humming charge had lived his whole life, walled off behind something that pressed on it the way Brennan's dampener had pressed on Xavier. So, bound, but not with rope. That was useful to know. He filed it the way Logan filed things and kept his eyes shut a moment longer, listening. One set of footsteps, slow, unhurried, somewhere across the room. A fire small in a grate, wind in a great many empty spaces beyond the walls, the wind of a high lonely place. No traffic, no sea, inland then and high and old. "You may stop pretending to sleep," said Corvus Selwyn's mild voice. "I have watched a great many people wake in this room over the years, Mr. Potter, and the brave ones always do exactly what you're doing. They take stock before they let me see their eyes. Your father taught you that, I expect, the one with the claws. He is a thorough teacher. I look forward to him." Harry opened his eyes and sat up, slow, controlled, and looked at the man who had taken him, and did not give him fear, because fear was a thing you fed people like this, and Logan had taught him to starve them. The room was a hall, long and high and ruined elegant, the seat of some old family fallen into dust and patient. Selwyn sat in a tall chair by the fire with a cup of something steaming, for all the world a country gentleman receiving a guest, and the only wrong note was the thing chalked and silvered into the floor of the far end of the hall, a great circle of marks and angles that Harry's eye slid off and could not hold, that hummed at the edge of the silence where his own power used to be. "That's where you do it," Harry said, not a question. "The new moon, you take what's in me." "I extract it," Selwyn corrected, pleasant. "Take is a thief's word, and I am not a thief, I am an heir. The power that lives in you was my master's, before a foolish woman's love turned it back on him and scattered it into the only vessel near enough to hold it. For 11 years I have searched for the vessel, and now I have it, and on the new moon I will pour what is in it back into the world where it belongs, into a worthier cup." He sipped his drink. "I will be honest with you, because I find I rather like you and you have earned honesty. The vessel does not survive the pouring. There is no version of the new moon in which you walk out of this hall. I am sorry for it. You are a remarkable boy, and the world made you so by being cruel to you, which is the world's usual method, and there is a part of me that would have enjoyed seeing what you became. But the cause is larger than one remarkable boy, and so were a great many other things I have set aside for it, and so it goes." Harry weighed it the same as he weighed everything, turning it over for the catch, and found this time that there wasn't one. The man meant it. 9 days, and then the circle, and then nothing. He sat with it on the cold stone, and he found, somewhere under the place where his power used to hum, that he was not afraid the way the man wanted him to be, because he had spent 5 years being raised by a creature that could not die, teaching him that the only thing that mattered was what you did with the time you had. "You shouldn't have told me about Logan's soul," Harry said. Selwyn raised a colorless eyebrow. "Oh, you used the Dementors on him, the kiss. You held it over me to make me come." Harry got to his feet, slow, and stood in the cold hall facing the most dangerous man in 2 worlds with his chin up, the thing that had made Selwyn want to meet him. That means you don't understand him at all. You think he'll come here careful, scared for me making mistakes because he's afraid. He won't. You took the one thing he ever let himself keep. There's no careful left in him now. You didn't capture me to bait a trap. You rang a dinner bell, and the thing that's coming for it doesn't get tired and doesn't get old and doesn't ever stop. He let the silence sit, the way Logan let silences sit. I'm not the one who should be afraid in this room. I've got 9 days and a dad who always comes. You've got 9 days and a circle on the floor and no idea what you let into the world when you made him watch. For the first time, something flickered in Corvus Selwyn's slate eyes. They're and gone, and it was not fear, not yet, but it was the cold draft that comes in under a door before the storm, the first small understanding that the arithmetic might have a term in it he had failed to carry. And then it was gone, and he smiled, and somewhere far off in the great ruined house a door boomed open, and a heavy unhurried tread came down a long stone corridor, and a voice Harry knew, a low gravel scrape, called out ahead of it into the hall, almost merry. You got him. Tell me you got the brat and not just his shadow. Victor Creed filled the doorway, amber-eyed, blood-dried in the fur of his coat, grinning at the kid across the hall like a wolf grinning at a lamb it has been promised. There he is, the green-eyed bait. Oh, this is gonna bring Jimmy a long way. He looked at Selwyn, and the two predators, the cold one and the feral one, took each other's measure across the ruined hall, the wizard who had bought an army and the animal who could not be bought, allied for 9 more days by the single thing they had in common, which was Harry standing small and unbroken between them. 9 days, Creed said, and licked a fang. Best 9 days of my whole life, I figure. Harry looked at the two of them and the chalked circle and the high cold windows where a thin moon was already dying toward dark, and he did the thing Logan had taught him to do when the world ran out of moves. He breathed, in for 4, out for 4, and he held on. Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. Blood and Bone. Selwyn's seat was a ruined castle at the head of a highland glen, and Logan understood the joke of it the moment Dumbledore showed them the place on the map, because it was not 40 miles from the croft where he had first taught a frightened boy to build a fire in the wind. The same country, the same kind of cold. As though the whole long road of the last 5 years had been a circle drawn to bring him back here, to the moors where he had started raising the cub, to finish the thing the moors had begun. They came on the new moon, in the dark, the way you come for a thing you mean to take back. There were not many of them, which was the point. Logan had run enough wars to know that 100 soldiers against a fortress is a siege, and a siege takes time, and they did not have time. They had until moonset, when the circle on Selwyn's floor came ripe. So he took the few who could do the most. Oraro, who could turn the sky against stone. Hank, who carried the device that would keep Xavier whole inside any darkness Selwyn could field. Xavier himself, who would hold the alliance together mind to mind and be their eyes. Dumbledore and McGonagall and the 3 grim wizards who had crossed an ocean for the Potters. John, who had begged to come and been refused and come anyway, and Logan had not had the heart to send the kid back, because the kid had learned that from him too. And Logan, who was the spearpoint, the thing the whole effort existed to deliver to the one room that mattered. You understand the shape of it, Dumbledore said, the last quiet minute before they moved, the glen black and enormous around them and the broken castle a darker dark against the stars. Selwyn will expect us. He has wanted you to come from the first, Logan. The whole of this has been a hook baited with a child to draw you in. We are walking into the trap with our eyes open because the kid is inside it, and there is no version of saving him that does not run through the place his captor has prepared for us. I will not pretend otherwise. Good, Logan said. Don't. He looked up at the dark castle where his son was waiting, certain he would come. He thinks the trap's the clever part. He thinks I don't know it's a trap. That's the thing about men who run sums on people, Albus. They always forget to carry the one term they can't measure. He let the claws out, both sets, 6 blades catching the starlight. I don't care that it's a trap. I was always common through that door. The trap just tells me which door. Aurora raised her hands, and the clear Highland night began very quietly to grow a storm. Then let us spring it, Dumbledore said, and bring Harry home. The storm broke over the castle like the end of the world, which was the idea. Aurora brought it down all at once, no build-up, a Highland sky gone from clear to apocalypse between one breath and the next, and the first bolt split the castle's eastern tower and threw stone across the courtyard, and in the white flash of it the alliance went through the gates. Selwyn's wizards met them in the great forecourt, a dozen dark-robed figures with wands already lit, and the Dementors came down off the broken walls in a cold grey tide, and for a few minutes the forecourt was the kind of chaos that Logan had spent a century learning to walk through untouched. He walked through it untouched. That was his whole job, and he did it. Dumbledore and McGonagall and the three crossed-over wizards held the dark robes and the cold ones at the door, silver light blazing off their wands, patronesses tearing through the Dementors, curses meeting curses in the rain. Aurora rode her storm above the towers and dismantled the castle's defenses stone by stone. Hank's device hummed at the center of them and kept Xavier's sight clear. And Xavier moved them all like one hand, here left behind you. The kid is below, Logan, below and to the north, go. We have this, G.O. And Logan went through the forecourt and the curses and the cold, a thing the dark wizards could not curse fast enough and the Dementors could not hold. The Spearp went driving for the one room that mattered, leaving the war behind him for the others to win. He found the stairs down, and at the top of them, filling the dark of the doorway, waiting, grinning, exactly where Logan had known he would be, stood Victor Creed. Knew you'd come this way, Creed said. It was relaxed, easy, blocking the stare with 500 pounds of patient murder, and behind the grin there was something almost like contentment, because this, for Victor, was the whole point, the one thing in two worlds he had ever truly wanted. Pale man's got the brat downstairs with his circles and his moonset. Soldiers are dying upstairs, and here's you and me, little brother, in a stairwell at the bottom of the world, right back where we always end up. He cracked his neck. 100 years. I always figured it'd be just us at the end. No program, no handlers, just the two things that won't die, findin' out at last which one of us is the realer animal. Get out of my way, Victor. Make me, Creed said, delighted. That's always been the only way, Jimmy, make me. So Logan made him. It was the worst fight of both their long lives and the last, and it did not look like the others. The others across 100 years had been a dance, two immortal things trading cuts in the joy of finding the one partner who would never break. And some buried part of Logan had always answered the dance, had always gotten lost in it, and Victor had counted on that for a century, had counted on his brother loving the fight as much as he did. Not tonight. Tonight Logan did not dance. Tonight, at the bottom of a stairwell with a moon dying somewhere above and a boy waiting below, Logan understood for the first time the thing that had always made Victor the better animal and would, tonight, make him the dead one. Victor fought because he loved fighting, and Logan fought to get through the fighting to the other side, to the room, to the cub. And a creature that fights to reach something will always, in the end, beat a creature that fights for its own sake, because it does not get lost, because every motion is paid toward a destination, because it cannot be tempted to make the good thing last. Creed came at him huge and joyful, and Logan met him without joy, and that was the difference, and Creed felt it land in the first exchange and did not understand it, and it cost him everything. Logan did not trade cuts, he spent each one. He took the wounds that closed and ignored the dance and worked, cold and economical, toward the single end of putting his brother down and stepping over him. And Victor, who had wanted the dance, who had wanted the 100-year game to have one last glorious round, found that his brother had stopped playing, found that the thing across from him in the dark was not the partner he'd chased for a century, but a father in a hurry. And there is nothing on earth more dangerous than a father in a hurry. And Victor Creed learned it too late to use. They went down the stairwell in a tangle, through a door, into a low stone undercroft, and Logan took a set of Creed's claws across the face that blinded him in one eye for the half-second it took to heal, and gave back the adamantium under the ribs and levered up, and Creed roared, and they broke apart and crashed together again, and the undercroft came apart around them. And somewhere in it Logan stopped being careful with his own body, because his body did not matter and never had. And he let Creed open him up in 3 places to get the one grip he wanted, both hands, both sets of claws, and he drove his brother back against the old stone and pinned him there as he had pinned him against an oak 3 years before, except this time he did not stop to make a promise, because the promise was already made and there was a moon dying overhead. This is the part, Logan said, close in the dark, his voice rough and almost gentle, where I tell you I'm sorry, and the thing is, Victor, I am. You were the only one who knew what it was. 100 years, you were the only other thing in the world that couldn't die beside me, and that's a kind of brother, even your kind. So I'm sorry they made us. I'm sorry you spent the whole gift talkin' instead of keepin'. I'm sorry it ends in a hole in the ground at the bottom of a glen 40 miles from the only good thing I ever did. His claws were set, and Creed, pinned, bleeding, looked at him with the amber eyes for one long moment, and something in them that had not been there in 100 years flickered, something almost like understanding, almost like rest. Go get your kid, Jimmy, Victor Creed said. And he stopped fighting, which was the only surrender he had ever been capable of, and Logan ended it, fast and clean and final, the way you end a thing you have loved and hated for longer than countries last, and he did not make it slow, and he did not make it a spectacle, and when it was done he stood in the dark undercroft over the still body of the closest thing to a brother he had ever had, and he let himself feel it for exactly one breath, the grief of it, the 100-year weight of it. And then he set it down, because there was no time, because there was never any time, because somewhere below him through the stone a moon was dying and a boy was waiting, certain he would come. He wrenched the claws free and turned from his brother and ran for the stairs. The ritual hall was the long ruined room Harry had woken in 9 days before, and it was full of cold light, and it was almost too late. The great chalked circle blazed silver blue on the floor, and Harry stood at the center of it, held upright by nothing Logan could see, his arms out from his sides and his head back, and out of his chest where the scar sat under his collarbone. The bright humming charge that had lived in him his whole life was being drawn in long shining threads, lifting away, spiraling up and across the hall toward Corvus Selwyn, who stood at the circle's edge with his wand raised and his colorless face lit from below, gathering the threads of a child stolen, power the way a man winds wool. Above the broken roof, a thin sliver of moon hung low against the dawn, dying toward the horizon, toward moonset, toward the moment the pouring finished and the vessel emptied for good. Harry's eyes were open and they were going dim. He had held on 9 days. He had held on with everything Logan had put in him, and he was at the end of it, the green going gray, the small body emptying, and when Logan crashed through the door at the run, the kid's failing eyes found him anyway, across the hall, across the cold light, the way they had found him in a cupboard 5 years before. "You came," Harry said. It came out of him barely, a thread like the threads leaving his chest. "I knew you'd come." Where I could reach him. Logan hit the edge of the circle at a dead run, and the circle threw him back, a wall of silver blue that the adamantium could not cut and the claws could not breach, and he came off the floor and hit it again, and it held, and Selwyn did not even look at him. "You cannot break it," the wizard said, mild, unhurried, winding the shining threads. "It is older than your metal and your rage both. You may watch. I rather wanted you to. It seemed only fair, after the trouble, that you should be in the room." He drew another length of the kid's power out into the cold air. 2 more minutes, moon set. "And then it is done, and the cause has its inheritance, and you have the rest of your very long life to think about the door you could not break." Logan hit the wall a 4th time and fell back and knew, with the cold total clarity that had kept him alive 100 years, that Selwyn was right. He could not break it. The one time in his whole long life that brute force was the thing he reached for and the thing he was built for, and it was not enough, and his sun was emptying out on a chalk floor 10 feet away, and the claws that had cut through everything could not cut through this. So he stopped trying to cut, and he did the other thing, the thing he had spent 5 years learning to do that had nothing to do with claws, the only thing he had left. He got down on the floor at the edge of the circle, close as the wall would let him, so his eyes were level with Harry's the way they had been level in a cupboard doorway, and he made his wrecked voice as flat and as calm and as steady as it had been that first night in the rain, the still pond voice, the voice that had talked a frightened child through the cold and the fire and the gun, and he reached his son the only way left to reach him. "Harry, look at me, not him, not the circle, me. You hear my voice, good. Now you listen, 'cause I'm only gonna say it once and then it's just true forever." The threads pulled out of the kid, shining, relentless. "That thing he's talkin', that's not his, it was never his, you hear me, it came out of you, it's yours, it's been yours since the byre door, since the heather, since you turned that cat blue to make Marcus laugh. He's not talkin' something that belongs to a dead wizard. He's talkin' you, and you're gonna let him 'cause you're tired and it hurts and you've been holdin' on 9 days. I know, cub, but I need one more thing from you, one more." "So tired, Logan. I know, stay anyway, cub, just like the med bay, you remember. You stayed for me then, stay now." Logan's hand was flat against the silver wall, useless, and he pressed it there anyway, as close to him as 100 years of muscle could not bring him. "He thinks you're a cup he can pour out. He doesn't know what I know. He doesn't know you got it from your mother, who stood in front of a killer and would not move. He doesn't know you got it from 5 years of an old wolf teachin' you that scared is just information, and the only question that's ever mattered is whether you run the thing or it runs you. So run it, Harry, one more time. Don't let him grab it. You remember how. Quit shovin', quit letting him shove, and ask it to come home." And Harry Potter, 11 years old, emptying out at the center of a dark wizard's circle with a moon dying overhead, heard the voice that had pulled him out of a cupboard, and reached down past the tiredness and the cold and the long 9 days into the flat silence where his power was being stolen. And for the last and largest time in a life already full of impossible things, he stopped being afraid, and he became the calm at the center of his own storm, the still pond. And he did not let the wizard grab what was his. He asked it to come home. The threads stopped. They hung in the cold air for one impossible instant, the long, shining strands of the kid's power suspended between the child and the wizard, neither leaving nor staying. And then they reversed. All of it all at once, the whole of the bright humming charge that Selwyn had spent 9 days and 11 years in a buried war to draw out, turned in the air and rushed back the way it had come, back into the small body at the center of the circle, back home to the will that owned it, and it did not stop when it filled him. It overflowed. Corvus Selwyn had built his ritual on a single assumption, the assumption every man who runs sums on people makes, which is that the thing in the vessel is separate from the vessel, a possession to be moved, a power without a person attached. He had been wrong since the first day. The power was not in Harry. The power was Harry, bound to his will and his blood and his mother's love and 5 years of a wolf's hard teaching, and you cannot pour out a boy, and the moment Harry stopped letting you try, the whole vast engine of the ritual had nothing left to pull against and turned, like a flood against a broken dam, back on the hand that had reached into it. The silver-blue wall of the circle shattered. Logan went through the space where it had been before the light had finished dying, and in the same instant Selwyn, his colorless face finally breaking, finally afraid, swung his wand off the kid and toward the man coming through, and a bolt of green light, the green Harry would learn was the color of the only curse that did not bother with wounds, leapt off the wizard's wand straight at Logan's heart. It never reached him. Harry was already there. Not in body, the body still stood swaying at the center of the broken circle, but the power that was him, overflowing, reached across the hall faster than green light and folded around the man who had pulled him out of the rain, and the killing curse struck a wall of a child's love made solid and broke against it like surf on a cliff and scattered into nothing, and Harry, with the last and the largest of it, turned what remained on the wizard who had taken him. He did not kill Selwyn. That was the thing Logan would tell him after, when the kid lay awake in the dark wondering what he was. You didn't kill him, cub. You just stopped holding the door for him. What Harry did was withdraw all at once the power Selwyn had spent his whole reaching self trying to seize. And the wizard, leaning his entire will into a flood that abruptly was not there, fell forward into the ruin of his own ritual, into the rebounding engine of the darkest magic he knew, and it took him the way a current takes a man who has rowed too hard against it and finds it gone slack and then violently reversed. There was a sound like the world clearing its throat, a wash of cold light. And where Corvus Selwyn had stood there was only a scorch on the old stone and a wand rolling to a stop, and the thin moon slid below the horizon on an empty hall, 2 minutes too late to matter. Harry's legs went out from under him. Logan caught him before he hit the floor. He caught him the way he'd lifted him out of a cupboard 5 years before, light, too light, 9 days hollow, and he went down to his knees on the cold stone with Harry against his chest and his hand over the small back. And for a moment the most dangerous man in 2 worlds just knelt in the wreckage and held his son and shook, which no one ever saw, because there was no one left in the hall to see it. I asked at home, Harry mumbled into his shoulder, far away, spent past the end of himself. Did I do my job? Yeah, Logan said. His voice was gone entirely. Yeah, cub, you did your job. You did the whole thing. I just yelled through a wall. He pressed his face to the dark hair for 1 second, the closest the old wolf ever came to the word he never said. You can sleep now. I got you. I got you. Nobody's talking you anywhere ever again. Sleep. Harry slept. When Selwyn fell, the rest of it fell with him. The dark wizards in the forecourt felt their master's death the way a hand feels a candle go out, and the ones still standing broke and ran for the dark, and the Dementors, with no will left to hold them, drifted up off the broken walls and away over the moor to wherever such things go when no one is feeding them, and Aurora let her storm gentle down into ordinary Highland rain, and the great cold castle went quiet. Dumbledore came down the stairs and through the undercroft and stopped a moment over the still huge shape of Victor Creed, and bowed his silver head to it, because the old wizard had buried enough things to know that even a monster is a grief to somebody. And then he came onto the ruined hall and found Logan kneeling in the wreckage with the sleeping boy in his arms, and he did not say anything at all, which was the wisest thing the wisest man in 2 worlds had ever not said. They had all of them lived. That was the accounting in the gray Highland dawn, and it would take Logan a long time to believe the size of it. John had a broken collarbone and a story he would tell wrong and gloriously for the rest of his life. The crossed-over wizards were burned and battered and standing. Aurora was gray with spent power and would sleep for a day. Hank's device had held and Xavier had stayed whole and had run the whole battle from a wheelchair in a forecourt by the strength of a mind that loved them all and was paying for it now in a way that did not show. And Harry was alive, hollow and spent and unconscious, but alive and his and breathing, and that was the only line in the whole ledger that Logan could actually read. They did not stay in the glen. Logan carried the kid out of the castle and down through the wet heather himself, would let no one else take the weight, and somewhere on the long walk down to where Dumbledore could move them all home, the rain stopped and the sun came up over the tops, and the same Moor that had watched an old wolf teach a frightened child to build a fire 5 years before watched him carry that child back out of the dark, heavier now and whole and saved, and it occurred to Logan, walking, that he had told him once that home was a place you would come back to even with the door wide open, and that he had not understood, until this exact moment, with the cub breathing against his chest and the sun on the heather, that he had stopped meaning a place a long time ago. Harry slept for 3 days. Hank said it was the body refilling, the power knitting itself back through a boy who had been wrung nearly dry, and there was nothing to do but wait, and the family did the thing it had learned to do, which was orbit. Marcus sat inside the margin that was no longer a margin and held the edge of the blanket and did not spoil it. Sarah lit a flame and turned it blue herself badly, because the trick had been Harry's and she wanted it ready for him when he woke. Xavier came and sat. Logan did not leave the room. Kid woke on the 3rd day in the gray light of a New York morning with a weight on his hand and turned his head, which cost less than it had the last time, and found Logan there asleep at last in the chair, holding on. "Logan," Harry whispered. The man was awake instantly. His eyes went over Harry, the quick total inventory, and found him alive and refilled and home. "Hey," Logan said. His voice was rough. "There you are. Did we win?" Logan let out a breath that had 100 years in it. "Yeah, Cub, we won the whole thing. Selwyn's done. Brennan's done. The program that's left isn't gonna come near you again, not after the bill they paid. And Victor," he was quiet a moment. "Victor's done too. That one I'll tell you about when you're older, and it's a sadder story than you'd think, and I'll tell it true because that's the rule, but it's over. All of it. You held on 9 days and you came home and it's over." Harry was quiet, turning it over, testing it for the catch as he still tested everything and probably always would. Then he said, "You came through a wall for me." "I came through everything for you," Logan said. "I've been doing it 5 years. You're slow if you're just noticing." The question of what came next arrived a week later, when Harry was strong enough to sit up and argue, in the form of 2 old wizards and a witch in the school's library, and the kid met it as he met everything, which was with terms. "There is a place for you at Hogwarts, Harry," Dumbledore said. "There has been since you were born. It is your mother's school and your father's, and it is the place where you would learn to use the gift that is your birthright among others who share it, properly, fully, in a way that no one in this house, for all their love, can teach you. I will not pretend that is a small thing to offer, nor that I do not wish you to take it. But I have learned, recently and at some cost, not to make this child's choices for him." The blue eyes were steady. "So I am asking, not arranging. Will you come and learn what you are?" Harry looked at Logan, who was leaning against the bookshelves with his arms folded, deliberately saying nothing, leaving the room to Harry as he had since the night in the hall. "I want to learn it," Harry said slowly. "I do. I've got a whole half of myself I've only ever done by accident, and I'm tired of doing things by accident." He turned the thing over, careful, looking for the catch, and this time finding only a choice. "But I had a place I didn't choose once. And I won't do a thing again where the door locks behind me and somebody else decides what I'm for. So here's how it works. If it works, I'll come. I'll learn. But I come home at the holidays here to this house to him. And if I ever write and say I'm done, and nobody runs a sum on me about the great or good. And Logan gets to come see I'm safe whenever he wants, and your school doesn't get to tell the most dangerous man in the world he can't walk through a door." He looked at McGonagall. "I read about your castle. It's got a lot of stairs and a lot of secret passages and a giant squid. He'll like it. He likes counting exits." McGonagall's severe mouth did something it did not often do. "I believe," she said, "that we can find room in the arrangements for an uncle who counts exits. We have a groundskeeper who would welcome the company and a defense post that has gone through professors at a remarkable rate. I make no promises, but I suspect the castle and your uncle would get on." "You're offering me a job," Logan said from the bookshelves, not quite a question. "I am observing," McGonagall said primly, "that a school which has just discovered it is a target in a war it did not know it was fighting might do worse than a man who has spent 100 years winning them. Whether you take a salary is between you and the headmaster. Whether you frighten the students is, I suspect, not negotiable." Logan looked at the kid, who was watching him with the green eyes bright and waiting, the kid who had just negotiated a foothold in 2 worlds with the cold competence of a thing raised by a wolf, and who had built the whole deal, every line of it, around keeping the old man close. "Yeah," Logan said. "All right, I'll come look at your castle. I'm not promising to wear a tie." "Heaven forbid," said McGonagall. That night, when the wizards had gone and the house had quieted, Logan came and sat on the edge of the bed where Harry was propped on pillows working his way through the first of John's paperbacks, and he took something out of his jacket pocket and put it on the blanket between them without a word. It was the pocket watch, the tarnished, broken one. The twin of the one Selwyn had used to hook him out of the world, the one Logan had bought in a junk shop on a made-up birthday because a man should carry something that was only his. "You took it," Harry said, "off the windowsill." "I carried it 9 days, Logan said. "Figured if I had a piece of you in my pocket I'd have a reason to keep walking till I could put it back in your hand. Stupid, sentimental, don't tell anybody." He looked at the broken watch on the blanket. "It still doesn't work, never has. I keep meaning to get it fixed and I never do, and you know what, I figured out why the long way round, somewhere on a Highland moor with you bleeding the wrong color out of my arms. A broken watch is the only honest kind. It stopped at a time that mattered to somebody once, and it just keeps saying that one time over and over, doesn't care about the rest." He picked it up and put it in the kid's hand and closed Harry's fingers over it with his own scarred ones. "Mine stopped the night I smelled you in a cupboard. Whole life before that, I don't even get to remember, they burned it out of me. Whole long life. And the one piece of it I'd walk through a wall to keep started in the rain on a street called Privet Drive when a 6-year-old held out a broke arm and said it clicks when I move it." His voice had gone rough. "I never wanted a family, kid. I want you to know that 'cause it's the truest thing I can tell you. 100 years I made dead sure I never had one, 'cause everything I ever loved got taken, and I decided the smart play was to love nothing and stay a ghost. And then a wolf with no business having anything smelled a hurt kid off a country road and stopped the truck, and that was the end of the ghost, and I have never once, not for a single second, been sorry." He let go of the kid's hand. "Welcome to the family. It's got claws and a wheelchair and a weather witch and a kid who spoils things, and now a whole castle full of wizards, apparently, and it's the most heavily armed family in either world, and it's yours. You're stuck, same as the truck, should have read the fine print." Harry held the broken watch in both hands, as he had once held a new coat in his lap to keep it from flying away, and he didn't say thank you, because he still didn't have the machinery for it, and probably never would. The words rusted shut in a cupboard a lifetime ago. But he leaned over and put his head against the old wolf's shoulder, and Logan put one scarred arm around him, careful of the healing scar under the kid's collarbone that matched, in its way, the white lines on the backs of the man's hands, 2 creatures the world had cut, and that had grown their scars toward each other instead of away. It was the nearest thing to a confession either of them would ever make, and it was made in silence in a chair beside a bed, which was the only language the two of them had ever truly needed. "Is it home now?" Harry asked, the old question, the one from a snowy night 3 Christmases gone. "You'd come back to it," Logan said, "even with the door open, even from a castle full of wizards across an ocean. You'd come back." "Yeah," Harry said, "I would." "Then it's home," Logan said. "That's the only part I ever cared about. Go to sleep. You got a whole life to be slow at startin' tomorrow." And Harry, who had once slept on top of the blankets with his boots on, ready to run, set the broken watch on the table beside him and lay down under the covers in a warm room in a house with his name on a door, and slept the deep, clean sleep of the safe, while the most dangerous man in the world sat in the chair beside him with one ear open out of old habit and watched him breathe and did not, for once in his very long life, want to be anywhere else at all. The morning Harry left for Hogwarts, the whole strange family came out onto the east lawn at dawn to see it, which was not a thing the family did, getting up at dawn for sentiment, and everyone pretended it was a coincidence that all of them happened to be on the grass at the same gray hour. Logan had the kid up and circling on the worn ground one last time before the trunk went in the car, the old ritual, 5 years of dawns behind it. "You're slow this morning," Logan said. "I'm packing for a castle," Harry said. "I'm conserving energy." "You're Stalin, show me." Harry showed him. He was 13 kinds of good now, fast and low and impossible to set hands on, and he got behind Logan twice, and the magic flickered at his fingers ready to be asked, and he didn't ask it, because the deal on the lawn had always been hands only, and Logan caught him the 3rd time the same as he'd caught him 1,000 times, and dumped him gentle into the dew, and stood over him with the not-quite smile that was still the warmest thing in the whole man. "Better," Logan said, hauling him up. "You're thinkin' 3 moves ahead now. Castle's not gonna know what hit it." He brushed the grass off the kid's shoulder, gruff, an excuse to put a hand on him before the long absent. "You remember the rules, watch the hands, not the size, calm's the tell, cold's just information, and the big one the one above all the others. Don't trade myself for anybody, even you," Harry recited. "Wrong," Logan said, "that one's off the table now. Selwyn's the last man who'll ever get to hold me over your head, 'cause I'm gonna be 40 miles up the road in a gamekeeper's cottage countin' the exits of a castle. And the day you need me you send your bird and I'll be through whatever door's between us before it finishes the trip. The rule, the real one, the only one that's ever mattered." He took Harry by both shoulders level, the way they'd all learned. "You come home." Whatever happens in that castle, no matter how the world goes at you, and it's gonna go at you, kid, you're famous and you're strong and you're a target and that never stops. You come home, the door's open, it's always gonna be open, that's the whole rule, say it. I come home, Harry said, you come home. Logan let him go. Now get in the car. McGonagall's got a face on her like a December and we're macking her late. Harry got in the car. The family crowded the drive, the wheelchair and the weather witch and the kid who spoiled things and the fire girl with a blue flame ready on her thumb and the telekinetic with his arm in a sling he refused to stop wearing for the sympathy. The most heavily armed family in 2 worlds, gathered on a gravel drive at dawn to send one of their own off to a castle full of wizards, and Logan stood among them at the edge as he always stood. A wolf who had spent 100 years making certain he had nothing the world could take, standing in the middle of a thing the world had given him anyway, against every plan he'd ever made. Xavier came up beside him as the car pulled down the long drive under the red and gold maples. You could go with him today, the telepath said. You needn't wait for the cottage to be ready. He would not mind, none of them would. Nah, Logan watched the car get small. Kid's gotta walk through some doors on his own or they don't count. I taught him that. Hardest thing I ever taught him. He was quiet a moment, the car reaching the gate, pausing, a small hand coming out the window to wave back at the gathered strangeness on the drive. Logan lifted one scarred hand and held it up until the car was gone. I'll be up the road inside the week. He'll smell me common before he sees me. He's got a nose on him now, that kid. Learned it off somebody. He learned a great many things off somebody, Xavier said. Yeah, the not-quite smile moved across the man's face and stayed, this time, a little longer than it used to. He did at that. The maples turned in the morning wind. Somewhere down the road, a boy who had once lived in a cupboard rode toward a castle that had been waiting his whole life. A broken watch in his pocket and a knife with a bone handle in his trunk and the certain knowledge, carried in the marrow the way the best things are carried, that whatever came at him in the years ahead, no matter how far the world tried to pull him from the people he loved, there was an old wolf 40 miles up the road with one ear always open, who had walked through walls and 100 years and his own buried past to keep him, and who would come, every time, through any door, for as long as the long, strange life in him held out, which was likely to be a very long time indeed. Logan stood on the drive a while after the car was gone, in the middle of his armed and impossible family, and breathed the morning in, the maples and the dew and the faint fading scent of him on the wind, and found for the first time in a century that there was nothing on it he was running from and nothing he was hunting and nothing he wanted that he did not already have. He went inside to pack. He had a castle to go count the exits of. Chapter 7 end.